A shocking
Oh
confession.
my fucking God. And this woman's case gets even worse than I thought. We have to check this out. It's on the feed. I can't, this is 5 hours ago. Holy shit. Y'all remember this woman I showed you? Yeah. The one that just got arrested doing wrong stuff with a kid and then started to try to threaten that kid or another kid, and they're looking at to see if there's possibly more. And now she's claiming that she's pregnant. What, man, this shit just makes me mad. I'll, I'll raise this baby and I'll love this baby and I'll do it by myself. Um, yeah, something tells me with your case that's not gonna play out the way you hope so.
A
I hope to God she ain't pregnant. That's disgusting, bro. The world is upside down, literally.
shocking confession from the Tennessee teacher accused of raping her former student. A phone recording apparently captures her saying she's pregnant with the 12-year-old boy's unborn child.
The poor child that she raped, and now this unborn child who's going to be growing up in this really uncertain world, where his mother may be in jail, and the child and his father is just this teenager. So who knows what's going to end up coming of that?
Yeah, can you imagine? Hey, Dad, you're only 10 years older than me. Huh?
Unborn child.
Attorney and trial consultant Dina Saig-Dahl tells Law and Crime Network the case is seemingly stacked against 38-year-old Alyssa McCommon.
Well, I would hope so.
It even sounds like they have new pictures of her, which that in itself, there's absolutely no reason that a teacher would be sending new pictures to their child. So right there, the case is very strong. And then if you do have these other text messages that you can show as her, again, the voicemail, which is very damaging against her, if they can also show that that is her, plus the testimony from the children.
If they can show it's her voice.
Children themselves. I do think they have a very strong case here.
Law and Crime Network first covered McCommon's case back in September when she was arrested in Covington, Tennessee, about an hour northeast of Memphis. Officials had been tipped off in late August about a potential sexual assault case. Investigators said McCommon began speaking to former students through video games, but that quickly escalated to conversations via social media apps and ultimately the sending of explicit photos. Prosecutors say she raped one of her former students, a 12-year-old boy, in her own home. Multiple other students have since come forward with similar accusations. At the time, McCommon was released on $25,000 bond, but just last week,
that was a mistake.
She was arrested again, this time for sending threatening messages to the 12-year-old victim.
Anytime you have a sexual abuse of a child, it's a serious allegation where an individual is facing potential jail time, potential registration as a sex offender for arguably the rest of their lives. Now you add to it the fact that after they're
as they deserve,
after they're arrested, after they know that they're caught, they proceed to reach out.
Most people will tell you they deserve worse. Same here.
To the victim and victimize them yet again. I think any judge, any prosecutor is going to view whatever sentence and kind of raise the bar in terms of how serious this case is.
After news of that arrest broke.
Well, yeah, there's a word for it. It's called witness tampering. That's exactly what that's called.
We spoke with Law and Crime legal analyst Julie Rendelman, who said McCommon was in direct violation of her bond.
When an individual is released on bond, they are specifically told they're to have
no
absolutely
contact
whatsoever with the victims or potential witnesses in the case. So it is a little unexpected that quite a short time after she's released, she decides that it's a good idea to reach out again to one of her 12-year-old victims and threaten them in terms of them going forward with this case.
But it was during a court hearing on Tuesday that even more shocking news was revealed.
I will never miss you again. You will never hear from me again. Please don't say anything. I'm under so much stress and I'm so scared all the time.
Prosecutors played the recording, arguing it's McCommon's voice admitting to the rape by saying the 12-year-old victim fathered her child.
I'm trying to tell you when it comes up. I'm looking like you. We don't have to talk anymore. Just please God tell me you're not going to say anything. I'll never speak to you again.
McCommon allegedly said she plans
Kind of crazy. She's sitting there talking to this child about having his child. And she's talking to him like, oh, he's old enough. He understands. Like, we're in a relationship. Like, she's fucking nutter.
to raise the child.
She's a literal nutter.
I'll raise this baby and I love this baby. And I'm going to love myself.
This story
No,
just gets
you don't
worse
need
and
to.
worse, definitely for her from the standpoint of like,
I don't think I'd be going far out to say I think your parenting and teacher card should be permanently revoked for life.
if these allegations are true, kind of the trauma that she caused this child that she raped and now is pregnant by.
After her second arrest, McCommon was charged with coercion of a witness, aggravated stalking, and harassment.
But this is really an extension
Aggravated stalking. I have to look up the definition of that.
the harassment, and you saw some of that coercive power that she used, I'm sure, in order to even rape the child to begin with. In this continuation, she's holding this kind of power over him, thinking that he still wanted to see her, still wanted to talk to her. Her threat is that I'm never going to talk to you again, assuming.
Yeah, I bet this, like, poor man, I'm not even, like, I'm just saying this briefly, but I bet this poor, victim is like, you had no idea how they're feeling. Like, they might be like fucking creeped the fuck out. Probably are, rightfully so. Like, this woman sounds crazy as fuck.
Even still what he wants. She's either delusional or she really holds
See?
this kind of power, which she did, right? I mean, she was in a power position that she hugely abused, in order to rape this child. And sadly, she's continuing to use that to abuse the child further with all these threats she's making in the phone call.
But Saig Dahl says it's still possible
I don't think, look at her. She has got a smile right there on her face. And I wish I could, I know that's a woman, but still, I wish a friend of mine that was a girl happened to be here when they snapped this and ran up there and got that smile off her face.
McCommon isn't really pregnant.
Is it possible that maybe she said she was pregnant as a way of trying to coerce the victim to not talk? 'Cause that
Yeah,
sounded like
could
what she
have
was
been.
trying to do in that voicemail.
Hopefully.
Or what is she actually pregnant? And then
Hopefully.
this trauma now involves like a second victim, this unborn child. That will remain to be seen, I think.
But if she is pregnant, Saig Dahl says that's not really relevant to McCommon's rape charge.
I cannot see how her being pregnant necessarily is relevant at trial. That would be why she would anybody would have to be forced to give up.
If anything, that would be evidence that she did it.
Let's say like a swab of a DNA, if it's relevant for identification purposes, as part of your charges, as part of the trial. But whether or not she's actually pregnant is really irrelevant in terms of whether or not she raped this child. And so I don't think her being pregnant is something that they would be able to compel, but they will certainly be able to use her voicemail where she says she's pregnant at trial. And I guess at that point, if she wants to rebut it for any reason, she could put forth evidence saying that she is pregnant or isn't pregnant. But my guess is they'll just use the voicemail, and whether or not she actually is or isn't, it will just be kind of time will tell.
And a paternity test likely
It doesn't matter. They're going to use all that stuff and they're going to slam it and they're going to throw the book at her as they should.
won't be court ordered.
I don't think at that point a paternity test would just be made in order to
I mean, why not? That would prove, if she is, which God hope she's not, but if she is, then that would prove, because it could be another person's that hadn't came forward that's younger, So it could end up bringing another possible victim out. There's a bunch of scenarios that this could turn out to be.
Victim's family wants to know whether or not he's indeed the father of that child. And I imagine, especially if she's convicted and is jailed, they may want some sort of, legal custody over that child. I mean, that's open for question, but it really then becomes kind of more of a custody issue, whether or not she raped him. That is her charge, is rape. Again, is irrelevant whether or not that crime results in a pregnancy. Really, at that point, it becomes the child who's going to raise the child. It's really horrible because, again, if this really happened, what it seems like it has, there are multiple victims, the poor child that she raped, and now this unborn child who's going to be growing up in this really uncertain world where his mother may be in jail and the child and his father is just this teenager. So who knows what's going to end up coming of that born child.
But Saigdal says it's possible the recording isn't even of McCommon.
That is one of the things her lawyer is saying, is that she didn't leave the voicemail. That you just have this woman's voice on there and you can't prove it's her. She doesn't say that it's.
I get we're in the age of AI technology and stuff, but come on now. What is the chances that what are they trying to say? That the parents of this boy or this person fudged the voicemail just to get her further in trouble because they didn't like she was on bail? Like, that'd be a hell of an accusation. And like, what do you mean? Like, all they need to do is record her voice in court, a few samples, and play it have an audio expert play and listen to it compared to the other. That's all they got to do. I mean, and then have somebody in the computer department basically check and make sure the file's like not synthetic or whatever, and was actually came from a device and was recorded. If they can do all that, which I'm assuming they could. So I think that's pretty weak. Her attorney's trying to come up with that.
Her on the voicemail, and so that's definitely going to be a point that they will bring up in terms of whether or not this is admissible against her, to begin with, because if you can't say it's her, it certainly wouldn't be admissible against her. But what the prosecution is saying, and really investigators are saying, is that she always used like a code word in her communication with the victim to identify that this was her. She would do the code word and then she would send nude pictures of herself. And that the same code word was used before she left this voicemail, kind of threatening him and talking about being pregnant. And so they're saying this is why they think it was her that left the voicemail, as well as the fact that this was one of the phone numbers that she evidently used in communicating with some of the other students she had communicated with. So that
oh my God,
is some evidence that it is her, but does it rise to the level of making it, verifiable enough, let's say, for a judge to actually admit it against her in a criminal trial? I think that's a little bit unclear at this point. You would really have to see all of the evidence that they're showing.
Investigators say before her initial arrest, McCommon used a code word to confirm the 12-year-old victim was alone. Upon her second arrest, they say the same code word was mentioned during her exchanges, including a message suggesting the boy would regret going to the authorities. Saigdal says that code word could play a part in whether the phone recording is allowed in court.
Maybe somebody else knew this code word and could have used this code word as a way to, make it strengthen the
really
case against her. Let's say, a relative of the victim.
You're just like reaching out into the void to find possible, which sure, they're possible situations, don't get me wrong, but how likely are they in the odd bracket?
Growing up in this really uncertain world where his mother may be in jail and the child and his father is just this teenager. So who knows what's going to end up coming of that unborn child.
Yeah.
Saigdal says that.
Yeah. And that's all that. Crazy ass fucking case. Cannot believe that. Damn. Talking about a soft form of Sharia law coming to America looking ass.
Newark mother is accused of choking and burning her teenage daughter over what she wasn't wearing in a photo, and also for overwarming some bread.
Yeah, that mother has been arrested and tonight is in the Harris
You gotta be fucking shitting me.
County Jail.
And for overwarming bread.
And that is where KPRC2's Bryce Newberry joins us now live with these horrific allegations in this case. Tell us about it, right?
Yeah, Keith, Daniela, that mother got booked into the Harris County Jail overnight. Tonight, she is accused of choking her 14-year-old daughter after seeing her without her hijab in an Instagram post. That is according to a source close to this investigation. Tonight, she's also accused of burning her daughter with a hot oven rack after that teen allegedly overcooked pita bread. With a
Bro, I'm living in Twilight Zone.
translator at her side, 36-year-old Sitar Khan, making her first court appearance on Wednesday afternoon, facing 2 felony charges.
Assault family or household member, impeding breath, and injury to child.
According to investigators, the physical abuse against her 14-year-old daughter, a result of the teen not wearing her hijab.
The defendant upset the complainant did not wear her hijab at school, beat and choked the complainant, causing her to lose consciousness.
The hijab is a garment worn by some Muslim women to cover their hair. A source close to the investigation says Khan spotted the missing head covering in an Instagram post. The injury to a child charge stems from an incident over pita bread, after prosecutors say Khan got upset about it being
Ugly.
overcooked.
Forced the complainant's arm onto a hot oven rack,
Damn.
causing her to have 3 burn marks.
Prosecutors wanted a $75,000 total bond for
Good.
the homemaker of 17 years, but the hearing officer set it at $20,000. Khan is expected in court Thursday morning.
20,000. She get 2,000. She could get out. Although I don't imagine the daughter's gonna be with her.
And we learned in court that the 14-year-old victim in this case is in Child Protective Services custody tonight. We did reach out to an attorney that's been hired to represent Khan several times tonight.
Fuck that bitch. I don't care about her case. She's evil. Man found
It's
not guilty.
shocking, never before seen video that led to the shooting of a notorious YouTube prankster. You can see the prankster. He's the 6'5" dude in the white baseball cap. His target is a guy named Alan Coley, and he's holding a bag of food he just picked up at the food court at the Dulles Town Center in Virginia. At one point, the 31-year-old Coley shoves the phone out of his face, but the prankster, 21-year-old Tanner Cook, is unrelenting.
Stop.
But the prankster never expected this reaction. A bullet fired into his stomach and liver.
Hey, you know what? You know what? This is a good fucking video to be showing.
Some miracle, he survived. Coley was arrested, and a jury just found him not guilty of aggravated malicious wounding. The prankster
Well done, America.
is seen leaving court with his mother after the verdict.
So I really don't care. I mean, it's
Here's why I got empathy for it.
Shooting of a notorious YouTube prankster. You can
He's putting something up in his face.
see the prankster. He's the 6'5"
He is like, I don't give a fuck what anybody says. He's actively fucking harassing this dude. He's got his little backup with him. He's got another person behind him filming. This dude's 3-to-1. He don't want to fucking be. He's just there to pick up some food and go about his fucking day.
6'5" dude in the white baseball cap.
Now he doesn't get violent. He gets it out of his face. He tries to walk away. I think that's responsible. Did he kind of maybe go a little overboard with pulling? Obviously, the 12 people didn't think so. I would say, I mean, then again, we don't know how many months or a year this guy possibly started fucking with this guy online. Maybe that's not being told in the story. It may have not was told in court. I'm just giving a fucking example. Maybe this dude used to bully this kid when he was in school or something. And now he's a YouTuber and they live close together. So we don't know all those facts. But I'm just saying something, I mean, he had to feel some type of way to have done that.
His target is a guy named Alan Coley, and he's holding a
And don't notice how they call him his target.
bag of food he just picked up at the food court at the Dulles Town Center in Virginia. At one point, the 31-year-old Coley,
And maybe he didn't know him at all. And whatever this weird shit this dude was doing freaked him out and scared him.
shoves the phone out of his face. But the prankster, 21-year-old Tanner Cook, is unrelenting.
Stop.
But the prankster never
I see, that's why I can relate to it. Stop. I mean, that's somebody that has a high level of intelligence. I mean, if they're, because it's easy for somebody to be rude to somebody or something, and the person just snap, punch you, slap you, whatever, But for somebody to take an injury and be like, hey, cut it out, stop. There's there's some grace there. But you keep doing it and doing it, you're gonna fucking make that shit disappear.
expected this reaction. A bullet fired into his stomach and liver. By some miracle, he survived. Coley was arrested, and a jury just found him not guilty of aggravated malicious wounding. The prankster is seen leaving court with his mother after the verdict.
Yeah, and then he's about to say, I don't really care. Yeah, you care. You're mad.
I really don't care. I mean, it is what it is.
That was the first time I seen the video. No mom wants to see their son be shot by a complete stranger. We respect.
Oh, so he was a complete stranger. Maybe you should teach your fucking son to leave fucking strangers and just general people alone and not try to make content, money, clicks, and views off fucking getting entertainment off other people's inconvenience and fucking with them. How about that? Teach your son that. Maybe that won't ever happen again.
Respect what the jury says. And my family and I are just grateful and thankful that I have my son here.
His father says, in his opinion, the jury got it wrong.
Absolutely, that he was guilty. The 20-second video shows that in no way was his life on the line, and he did not need to have deadly force.
The prankster is being vilified.
Well, obviously they disagreed. You don't know what your son could have potentially had. I mean, you want to sit there and act like your son's completely innocent in this situation. He instigated it. He could have had a knife on him. That dude didn't know him from Adam. Shut the fuck up and get the fuck on and be happy your son's alive.
Vilified online for his
and teach him better.
boorish behavior. The shooting was even a headline on SNL's Weekend Update back in April.
A Virginia man who pranks people for YouTube videos was shot while tricking someone in a mall. Good.
They call this stuff pranks, but a lot of the times they'll go up to him and say, you fuck with it. I mean, they'll be saying some really fucking blatant, oblivious type of shit, that, I mean, you see it all the time in the comments. This person's going to get punched. They think it's a game. They keep playing with people. They think it's a game. Yeah, that's exactly what this situation was.
YouTube channel includes posing as a security guard, falsely accusing people of shoplifting.
Bruh. And y'all gonna defend this dude, bro. His dad's really gonna be up there like that.
Yeah, I've got a gentleman trying to steal pep.
I support Tanner in whatever he decides to do, and I'm going to continue supporting him.
Well, I mean, when you don't teach your children basic etiquette and manners and how to treat other people and not treat other people as objects to get stuff off of, then this is what happens. And then you refuse to fucking acknowledge the behavior. So if it happens again or something, well, it's gonna, I guess it's not on you because he's 21 and over. So.
Dr. Grande, today's question is, can I offer an update on the case of Tanner Cook? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the incident, then offer my analysis. This case takes place in 2023 and primarily involves two people, Tanner Cook and Alan Walter Coley. First, I'll take a look at Tanner Cook. Tanner is a social media influencer who posts videos on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. He lives in Loudoun County, Virginia, which is an extremely wealthy area just west of Washington, D.C.
So he's rich, spoiled, and he's never been held accountable for anything. Makes sense.
At the time of the incident, he was 21 years old. Tanner's YouTube channel is called Classified Goons.
Yeah, sounds completely wholesome.
His friends record prank videos where they target innocent victims in public places. Here are a few examples of the types of pranks Tanner perpetrates. Trying to fire employees at stores where he does not work, asking workers to assist him with stealing, pushing recording devices in people's faces, accusing shoppers of stealing while dressed as a security guard, grabbing items that a shopper is trying to pay for at a self-checkout, and dressing up as a clown and causing a disturbance. At the time making this video, Tanner's YouTube channel has over 57,000 subscribers and has been
That's what's wrong with society.
Viewed over 2.6 million times. Now looking at Alan Walter Coley. Alan was 31 years old at the time of the incident and lived in Leesburg, Virginia. He was a high school graduate who worked as a DoorDash driver. Alan had a license to carry a concealed weapon. Now moving to the timeline of the incident. On April 2, 2023, Tanner Cook was in the Dulles Town Center, which is a mall located
Damn, and he's already went through trial and everything? Boy, you talk about speedy trial.
in the town of Sterling, Virginia. Just before noon, Tanner and three of his colleagues were in a food court playing a prank involving a translation app on Tanner's cell phone. Alan Coley was also in the food court during this time. On a video that was recorded of the incident, Alan can be seen with a DoorDash order in his hands. Tanner is following Alan while holding a cell phone in his hand. As the two men are walking, Tanner holds the cell phone about 6 inches from Alan's face. Using a translation app, the phone repeatedly plays the phrase, quote, "Hey, dip blank, quit thinking about my twinkle," unquote. Presumably, the last word is a reference to genitals. As Tanner was holding the cell phone in Alan's face, Alan pushed the phone away and told Tanner to stop. Alan walked away from Tanner while keeping his body and head turned so he could see him. Tanner refused to stop harassing him and continued to advance. As Alan was walking away and Tanner was in pursuit, Alan said stop again before retrieving a pistol from his pocket and firing a single shot. Tanner Cook was struck in the abdomen. At this point, Tanner stopped harassing Alan, mostly because of the shooting part. The police were
I love Dr. Grande.
contacted at 11:57 a.m. They arrived 3 minutes later and found Tanner just outside the mall. He was taken to a local hospital. The bullet pierced his stomach and liver. He had surgery and was eventually released. The police found Alan in the food court. He was placed under arrest at 12:02 p.m.
Then he had to take that picture like that, for his fans, for his social media, when he really should have had a fucking dunce hat on and a little sign that said, "Thank God I lived. Thank you, Lord."
Alan was charged with aggravated malicious wounding, using a firearm in the commission of a felony, and discharging a firearm within a building. He was facing 20 years to life in prison
Damn.
just for the aggravated malicious wounding charge alone.
All because this fuck. Man.
Allen was held without bond. Tanner was interviewed in the hospital. He said, quote, "I was playing a prank and a simple practical joke, and this guy didn't take it very well," unquote. He also claimed
I'll wait to say what I gotta
that
say.
Allen didn't say anything to him, which of course was not true based on the video. Allen told Tanner to stop 3 times. On September 25, 2023, Allen Coley's trial started. The state argued that all Tanner was doing was playing a silly phrase on his phone. The prank was bizarre, but not threatening. The shooting represented force which exceeded the threat to Allen. He took a gun to a cell phone fight. Allen's defense argued that Allen shot Tanner in self-defense. Tanner testified at the trial. He said that he earns $2,000 to $3,000 a month with his prank videos. After the shooting, his subscriber
Exactly. There's the problem. Using unsuspecting, unconsenting people to make money. There is things out there that make money off of all of us in ways that are legal, but you know what? They don't come up in our private space and in our personal bubble and intrude on us. Yeah, people, companies, you give them permission automatically sometimes to sell your information to marketing and stuff like that, you know, but this is a little bit more direct.
count increased by 16,000. Tanner referred to his videos as comedy content. One could argue that testifying his content contains comedy could be thought of as bordering on perjury. Tanner testified that he tries to confuse the target of his pranks for the amusement of his online audience. He doesn't intend to elicit fear or anger, but admitted that his targets often react with those exact emotions. So,
Yeah, because it doesn't matter if you intend to, and I call bullshit. I guarantee this little shit gets off and laughs at the fact that, oh, he was freaked out. Oh, he was so mad. Like, I guarantee it. You know, of course he ain't gonna admit that in court.
Tanner admitted that he causes people to be fearful and angry. On September 28, the case went to the
He even conceded it in his own damn words that it does do that to people. Well, maybe you should fucking do something different.
jury. 3 hours later, they sent a note to the judge saying how they were, quote, divided in terms of whether the defendant acted in self-defense, unquote. 2 hours after that, they came back with a verdict. They found Allen Coley not guilty of aggravated malicious wounding and not guilty of use of a firearm in the commission of a felony. The jury found Allen guilty of discharging a firearm within a building, which is a Class 6 felony in Virginia. The penalty for this crime is up to 5 years in prison. Allen's defense attorney argued that the one conviction doesn't make sense in light of the other 2 acquittals. How can someone act in self-defense but still be guilty of discharging a firearm?
Yeah, I don't agree with that because basically what they're doing is they're going to be taking away his right to self-defense, and he'd still be maybe looking at probation, if not a little bit of time, and maybe county or even possibly prison still. What the fuck? Thought he was acquitted.
Either it was self-defense or it wasn't. The jury clearly believed it was. Allen's attorney asked the judge to throw out the conviction. The hearing was scheduled so the judge can decide whether or not the conviction will be upheld. Tanner Cook did not appear to be discouraged by the verdict. He said, quote, I really don't care. I mean, it is what it is. It's God's plan at the end of the day, unquote.
Yeah, and God's plan shows you're an idiot.
Tanner indicated he would
A selfish little fucking dweeb.
continue recording prank videos.
And now you've affected this dude's life. Probably you've affected his life for the rest of your life. You had surgery and stuff. You may have some long-term effects or whatever, but you know what? In this case, You know, you went out there. I mean, like I said, maybe the dude should. I'm not agreeing with the dude doing that. All right, but he could have easily still like punched him, hit him with something, and that could have fucked him up even worse. You know, it could have put him in a coma. Like you don't. That's why you don't do that to people. What, regardless if they're right or wrong, because you're in the wrong in the first place doing what you're doing. So you're putting yourself in a dangerous situation. You know, and if you can help and avoid from doing that, then you shouldn't do it. And in this case, he didn't have to do what he did. So that's why I'm making that statement.
Now, moving to my analysis. This case has attracted a lot of strong feelings, with many people coming to Allen's defense and arguing that he was not guilty of any crime at all. The state, of course, disagrees. They claim that Allen used too much force for the situation. This brings me to the question, was Allen Coley guilty of any crime in this case? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that he was guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. Tanner was unarmed during the confrontation. His colleagues were also unarmed. Allen may not have known this, but there was no visible weapon either way. Tanner's behavior was unsettling.
You couldn't tell Allen was either.
Creepy, bizarre, ill-advised, disturbing, strange, menacing, and harassing. But he did not make
A weapon's not that useful if it's readily seen, you know, especially if you're targeted.
physical contact with Allen or overtly threaten him during the confrontation. The nature of the message that Tanner's phone was playing was consistent with a poorly designed prank, more so than an attack. The incident took place in the middle of the day in a mall full of people. It wasn't like Tanner confronted Allen at night in an alley. Allen had several non-shooting options available to him, like calling the police, yelling for help, or continuing his retreat. Moving to the exculpatory factors, Tanner initiated contact with Allen, who was working and minding his own business. Tanner and Allen did not know each other. The confrontation involved Tanner acting in a menacing manner. It was not immediately clear that he was perpetrating some type of prank. Standing at 6'4", Tanner was much taller than Allen and was accompanied by 3 colleagues. This could be interpreted as intimidating. By pushing the phone in Allen's face and playing a message that used an expletive, Tanner was acting in a way that could be interpreted as aggressive. Tanner had no legitimate reason for engaging in this activity. For example, it wasn't like Allen was a celebrity and Tanner was a reporter. The day before, Tanner had actually been kicked out of that same mall by security after trying to engage in pranks. He knew.
Then wow. Now I really don't think this dude should be guilty of anything.
That he was not welcome there, and that his activity deviated from societal norms. On the stand, Tanner admitted that his pranks caused people to react with fear and anger. Furthermore, he created confrontations with the purpose.
And they like it. I guarantee that if that defense attorney did a half of a good job, he went through his YouTube and found several incidences of him and his audience laughing at their targets, laughing their ass off. And I bet you the targets wasn't laughing with them.
Of causing confusion. Anyone who sets out to confuse people is taking a risk of causing fear. During the confrontation, Allen told Tanner 3 times to stop, and on one occasion physically pushed the phone away. Tanner should have known to discontinue the harassment, as Allen's behavior was consistent with fear and anger. Allen walked away from Tanner during the confrontation. He did not immediately resort to using lethal force.
Yeah, and people gave me shit, you know, my people that go at me do, because they like to take a video that I shown, and I showed it to demonstrate how being an employee in a small town at this restaurant, and I was basically, I was having, and I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's like a curse almost, because I had people there that, you know, I was just there to work, and I wasn't really joking with, and all of them were a lot younger than me. So they were like, I didn't really have time for any of their shit. You know what I mean? And maybe I came off to them a little off-putting that way. Regardless, they started, doing stuff. And so basically, I brought it up to the boss. And when I brought it up to my boss, I wasn't that, put it that way. I wasn't aware or thought, like, well, he may feel some type of way for some of these other employees or what have you. So I was a little harsh, like the way I came off talking about it. And I knew him, he knew our family for a long time. So I felt like I could, I had no reason to think I couldn't text him and be honest about it. And I think the most appropriate thing he could have done if he didn't agree or whatever was he could have just said, you either are going to have to, fix a way around it or find something else. He could have told me just that and left it at that. He could have told me he didn't appreciate, that, think about it, try to think about it from another way. He didn't come at me like that at all, which he could have. And I wouldn't have lashed out because obviously it's my boss. I would have been forced to reflect on it. And things could have played out completely different. But that's not how it went. So instead, I got like an okay. So, and then I went on to work 2 more days, no problem. Got a little heckled, but no big deal. And I didn't say nothing. And then I went back there on this one day, and things got a little heated between me and this person. And then when I came back, they said, people need to be real careful working next to this oil. You could slip and, have an accident. And they said that, walking right next to me. And immediately after they said it, somebody laughed and was like, oh shit, And I was like, fuck this, I don't need, I'm not going to subject myself to that just for, I can go get a job somewhere else. So I went and told him that I wasn't quitting. I wanted to make that clear. Like, I'm not saying that I'm quitting or anything. And to be honest, like, I had been there 2 minutes past the time to be clocked out. So I was actually trying to help them out with some shit past when I should have already been gone out the door. That's what I get for fucking being nice. So anyways, I go and tell him, like, I'm not, and he's like, well, he basically said, he basically laughed me off. And I said, all right, well, I'll let corporate know and we'll take it from there or something. I was like, but I don't feel comfortable around them, so I guess I can't come to work. I was like, yeah, I mean, you're not trying to address it or do anything. That's basically what I said. And because I said that, it pissed him off. So that's why in that video you see him coming after me as I walked out. And I kept walking. I'm not going to get into something and go to jail. Because if I had done or fought with him, they would have came, he would have said, and I would have fucked that. And the other employees knew he was in the wrong. That's why they came and got his ass, kept his ass from doing anything behind my back.
Rather, he retreated. In addition, Allen was looking over his shoulder as he.
And I just happened to have my car running because it was cold, and I knew I was leaving. And I just came back from delivery, so I left my car running, and my dash cam was on. That's the only reason why that got picked up.
Retreated, indicating that he was afraid of Tanner, like he didn't know what Tanner was going to do, and he did not want to lose sight of him. Instead of respecting Allen's decision to create distance, Tanner continued to advance and demonstrated an unwillingness to disengage. At this point in the confrontation, Allen had unsuccessfully deployed 3 strategies to end the confrontation peacefully. Allen repeatedly told Tanner to stop, but Tanner did not stop. Allen pushed the phone away, yet Tanner continued to hold the phone in Allen's face. And Allen retreated, but Tanner continued to pursue him. Only at this time, when Allen had exhausted other strategies to defuse the situation, did he resort to using deadly force. The state implied that Allen jumped directly to using excessive force, but he didn't. He used 3 other strategies prior to firing his pistol. Allen shot Tanner just 1 time, which was sufficient to terminate the confrontation. Allen did not continue to shoot Tanner until he was dead. He only used the force necessary to protect himself from a perceived threat. After
Exactly.
the shooting, Allen immediately surrendered. He made no effort to avoid taking responsibility as the person who fired the pistol. When considering all the evidence in this case, do I think that Allen Coley was guilty of any crime? No. I believe that Allen was not guilty beyond a reasonable doubt and not guilty in reality. Even though his reaction does not represent the recommended response, I believe that, in the moment, he had a reasonable fear that he was in imminent danger of bodily harm. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. Tanner Cook appears to have a lack of empathy. He is unable to recognize emotions in other people. This means he doesn't know when to stop with his pranks. He cannot tell if a target is happy, angry, confused, or fearful. Tanner also...
Even a fucking mental health professional right here is recognizing that, you know, if you're trying to engage in something like that, it's fine if they're enjoyable to it or whatever. But if you recognize they're not, you should fucking stop, or else you're being antisocial.
appears to have a lack of insight. He doesn't see how other people perceive him. He falsely believes that he is funny and that people watch him because of his comedic talent. When Tanner Cook targeted Allen Coley in the food court of the mall, he was determined to record a prank. Unable to recognize emotions, Tanner did not understand that Allen was afraid. Tanner tried to make himself appear like a deranged individual, and he was successful. This forced Allen to provide Tanner an indicator which could not be misinterpreted, namely, a bullet. Rather than accept responsibility for provoking the incident, Tanner played the victim, and the state of Virginia went along with it. They prosecuted Allen. The jury was not sure what to make of the case. They didn't like the idea of Allen shooting Tanner, but Tanner's behavior was so outrageous and threatening, they couldn't bring themselves to convict Allen of the most serious charge. They decided to split the difference. However, the decision was inconsistent. In my opinion, Allen cannot be guilty of discharging a firearm within a building if the shooting occurred during a legitimate self-defense incident.
Exactly, and I would think an appeals court is going to have a field day with that.
I'm not sure what message the jury is sending. Did they expect Allen to continue to retreat outside and then shoot Tanner? Like Allen was supposed to say to Tanner, "I'm feeling threatened right now, but can we take this outside? I would not want to discharge my gun in a building. That could be considered a crime." The outcome of the trial has not eradicated Tanner's desire to engage in nonsensical behavior. Based on the available evidence, it appears...
Of course not. He's up to his same shit.
as though Tanner's father, Jeremy Cook, is sticking up for Tanner. For example, Jeremy was upset by the verdict. He sent a statement to the media claiming that, quote, "We are all less safe than before," unquote. Jeremy called the verdict a
Really? The dude was still found, because of your son's little prank, he ended up still being found guilty and could be a felon now, fuck his life up, everything, all because he went to work and encountered your son, you know, basically. But you don't want to take responsibility for that, Dad.
product of mob rule, and said the media painted Tanner as the aggressor and Allen as the victim.
Oh, they painted it that way, huh? Okay.
He complained that Saturday Night Live mentioned the incident and supported Allen's behavior. Jeremy said, quote, "Everyone laughed."
Well, what do you think about that? I mean, if culture agrees, mental health people agree, the jury agreed, but you don't. But remember, you're his blood biological father. You're gonna love him no matter what. Are you sure you're not biased here, sir?
So millions of people saw this and just went with it, unquote. The Loudoun County prosecutor told Jeremy that the facts supported Tanner was the victim, but the public opinion went in the other direction. Jeremy believes that it is open season on social media influencers. He said, quote, "It's cool to just shoot them no matter what the facts are," unquote. Jeremy Cook ended
Obviously, that's not true.
his statement by claiming the world is living in a time where public opinion can be easily manipulated.
Well, one could argue since the invention of the radio, the newspapers, and all that, that's controlled by influence, that's been the case.
I think that Tanner's father fundamentally misunderstands how Tanner's behavior contributed to the outcome. The feelings of those who support Allen are legitimate. Tanner was the aggressor, and the state should have never brought charges against Allen. This was not an example of public opinion being manipulated. This was a case of a creepy and unsettling prankster who targeted an innocent person.
Creepy. I guess I'm not wrong to use that word when people try the same shit.
Tanner is a bully who harasses people and hides behind the idea that he is just perpetrating pranks. Now moving to my final thoughts. Even though
AKA hee-hees and ha-has.
Tanner did not literally dodge a bullet in this case, he did figuratively dodge one. This should serve as a wake-up call, but unfortunately, it probably will not. There is this sense that Tanner will keep playing pranks until he is forced to stop. Unfortunately, the force he encounters could be lethal. Those are my thoughts on the case of Tanner Cook. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section.
And let's just look at some comments. Let's see. It's harassment. The end. Still don't understand how this is considered a prank. Being turned off by cruel pranks is a very common trait among serial killers. What? Oh, being turned on by cruel pranks. Okay, got it. Tanner Cook can totally 100% recognize emotions. He knew exactly when to stop, but it's only when people gets the reactions he wants. He's a bully, plain and simple. I like that one. That is not pranking, it's harassment and bullying. Professional instigator, general nuisance, a man who was tragically shot and tragically survived, a victim of an extremely rare type of shooting where most people were rooting for the bullet, and a man who reaffirmed that when one goes looking for trouble, they will more than likely find it because there's always plenty of trouble to be found in the Twilight Zone. Do 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 do. Think Tanner lacks conscience, not just apathy. Also, Dad's a total enabler. Yeah. Bullies tend to call it pranks when they get called out for harassment. Also, this is a great example. YouTube has demonetized certain videos actually provide a public service, but it gives support to ones that humiliate, demean, and intimidate people. One day ago, let's give that one a like. You know, that way there's no... You can't just say, oh, that's just some bullshit Square says. No. Look at the shit people say about it. Uh-oh. Chris Hansen's got a new episode out. I haven't seen. True Blue. Viewer discretion advised.
On this episode of Takedown with Chris Hansen.
Yes, you have to sit right over there. Come on.
He starts throwing stuff like a child in a tantrum, bro. Oh my God. You should have not ever been.
Space engineering student just launched himself into one of my investigations.
That's the one thing I ask. Not ruin my life.
Engineering student.
Please.
And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know what comes next.
No.
You know who I am.
Yep.
You know what I do.
I'm investigating online child predators in the northernmost region of Michigan an area known as the Upper Peninsula, or UP. This massive operation is the undertaking
I gotta remember to do that. I never fucking do that to the channels I watch.
of Marquette.
Not on these. Yeah, that's what I hate about losing that one account. I had everything subscribed on it. I gotta go through slowly and redo it.
County Sheriff Greg Zybert, and involves numerous law enforcement agencies from around the state. Since starting the operation, the chatters have been busy fielding requests from men looking for sex with minors. But on this day, the man on the other end of the chat is 21-year-old Dylan. In the chats, he asks what services she will provide, and does she French kiss? The chatter right away says she's 15. He asks for a photo. Dylan again asks about her age, and he has a very particular request. And then he lies about his age, saying he just turned 18. He asks if he should stop and get condoms. The chatter wants to know his name, and Dylan tells yet another lie, that his name is Jose. He then demands a video.
My name is Jose.
And acknowledges again she's underage. But that's not dissuading Dylan, or should I say Jose, to head over and meet with someone he thinks is an underage girl for sex. The sheriff's decoy acts as the lookout, relaying Dylan's movements as he approaches the house.
They got a bong in there. I love how they're trying to make it seem all homey and regular.
One-handed pocket, one with keys.
We've disguised her identity for her safety.
Oh, they gonna get your ass. You fucking no good motherfucker.
Sorry, that door sticks and it's really weird.
Bruh, that is like that is the person that is like the Grim Reaper behind that door. Like that's how they should feel.
It's slowly getting worked on a little bit. So we're in the process of painting right now. And the heat's all messed up.
I wait in the wings, listening in on their conversation.
I have a couple drinks here. My phone's almost dead. I'm gonna run upstairs and throw out my charger real fast. I'll be right back.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You smoke?
A little bit, yeah. I have a lighter
Do
upstairs.
you want? I have some stuff in my car if you want to smoke.
Oh, I already have stuff. I'll
Oh, he's got weed.
grab my lighter real fast.
You got weed. You got weed.
Hey, take your hands out of your pockets. He tries to head for the door, but I cut him off before he can get there. And right away, he knows exactly what's about to happen.
Yes, you have to sit right over there. Come on. Sit right over there. We'll talk about it.
No, I don't want to.
You have to.
Why?
You can do this. You can do this one
Other
way.
police here. Hold on.
There's some people going to want to talk to you. Dylan.
Hold on. Yeah.
Dylan. Okay, I need you to sit right over there.
Hold on. I don't have a camera.
Dylan.
Please, hold on.
He's a pushy one, though, and again tries to lead. Now, the task force steps in and puts him in cuffs. The tears start flowing.
They're not gonna ruin your life. You ruined your life.
And the begging begins.
Please don't ruin my life. Please, that's the one thing. I just want you to ruin my life.
Okay,
I have a college degree. I'm gonna get a college degree. Please.
Hey, don't worry about it, girl.
Well, you better hope you can get the degree in prison.
That's the one thing I ask. No, ruin my life. Please.
Oh, okay. Take a deep breath and relax, okay? Dude, stand up. You have something wrong?
No, I'm just scared.
You're okay.
I'm really scared.
You're right. You're right.
I'm really scared. I'm
Hey.
really scared. I have such a problem addicted.
Yeah,
I messed it up.
You're all right. You're safe. You're safe. It's okay. We'll help you. Okay? All right. You're all right. You're okay.
Damn,
Dylan finally
dude is
calms
having a
down.
complete fucking nervous
At
breakdown.
least enough for the deputies to sit him on the couch.
No, we're gonna sit you on the couch, man.
But it's cool.
Now it's time for me.
I mean, though, think about it from the perspective, though, a human mind, considering the fact that they might be going to prison with this kind of thing. Yeah, they can't be thinking too happy about their future prospects.
To have a chat with Dylan.
Dylan, just help me to understand what was going on here and how you ended up here. That's the
I
best thing
honestly
to do.
don't know. I was just kind of curious if like this would happen.
You were
That was
curious if
me.
this would happen.
Oh, the same bullshit stuff. I was curious. I wanted to come by and make sure they were okay. I thought it was wrong. I wanted to warn them. All this
I
bullshit.
was like, I wonder if this would happen.
Dylan, how old are you, Dylan?
I'm 21.
21.
I'm 22.
Almost 22. And what do you do for a living? Are you a student?
Yeah.
And what do you study, Dylan?
Aerospace engineering.
Aerospace engineering. And when do you graduate?
I don't know. I'd like maybe a year and a half, 2 years left.
2 years.
I gotta say, man. Well, to Chris, you may want to tell this guy. Well, I don't even want to call him a guy. You may want to tell this Creedon that he's not gonna graduate. And aerospace engineering, I don't know much about that field, but there are places that hire felons. There's places that hire felons that are predators. I mean, I know of a local somebody that my granddad taught his family and him in school. And he's around my brother's age, and I didn't even know it here not till a few months back that he had something. And he's a fucking shipping manager or whatever. Your life's not over, I guess, completely. That is, if you survive prison.
Can I walk around a little bit?
No,
please?
we can't have you do that. Explain to me.
Although it's gonna suck. I mean, I can't imagine. Like, I think what do they got to do? Isn't it weekly or monthly? It may be weekly. I guess it depends on their level and stuff. But when they're registered like that, I think they got to have an ankle, a GPS bracelet. So they got to plug in. Not plugging it in even is a violation, I think, kind of like probation. And they got to go in and see the registered person. You got to do that. You probably. It depends on if he's classed as, people that get in decent exposures and stuff, they'll usually get class 1, and like really the low level stuff would be class 1. Then he'll probably be in class 2. Then you got this stuff where there could have been a victim. They thought there was going to be, and that's all it takes to break these laws. So, and it's probably enough intent to prove, and warrant. And the level 2, I think, what is that? 15 to 20 years. So I think it's like 10 to 15 years, something like that. Level 1 is like 5 to 10 years. And then level 3 is like 25 to the rest of your fucking life. Or yeah, I think it actually is the rest of your life. I think the second one actually is up to 25. The first one's up to 15. And then the third one is for life. Yeah, that's how it is. The third one's for life, if I remember correctly from what I read on the website here in the state.
As somebody who's almost 22 years old, who's got such a promising future, Dylan, they're going to want you to sit down. You got to sit down. Would go online and make a date to meet a 15-year-old?
Because
I
thought, because at first I went through the thought process in my head that she was 19, and then I was like, wait, you have to sign up with a social security number on one of those websites, so she must be 19. I thought she was lying.
She said 15.
I know, but I thought she was lying.
She was very clear about it.
Yeah, but the thing is,
hold on,
that you have to sign up with your ID and stuff, I believe. So like, I knew she was 19, and when she opened the door.
People could still get fake IDs made, and they could always have someone else use their ID. And here's the other part. If you talk to somebody and they say straight up, like, you have no other reason to not believe that they're, especially if they tell you, they're that old, and that's when the conversation should have ended. So none of this matters.
or if she was actually 15, I was gonna leave. But I saw that she looked like she was 19.
What do you mean if she was actually you were gonna leave? She already told you that she was that age. You came anyway, and you didn't. I don't remember him saying when he first got in, oh, so you really are 19. He didn't. He wasn't concerned about that.
There was no way she was 15.
You had a specific conversation about her being 15.
Of course, she's not 15. They're not gonna put an actual kid in front of you.
And you being worried about getting caught with somebody who was 15.
Yeah, because at first that's before I realized like wait, she has a social security number on that thing.
Well, they don't need to do that to get on
Yeah,
these sites. No,
don't
they
they
need
need
to
that?
just say they're 19, and kids get on these sites by saying they're 19 when they're actually 15, 14, or sometimes 13. So that's how they get on. And then you start talking about French kissing, you wear skirt and leggings. You got to sit down for security reasons. Okay? That's just the way it has to be.
Can I
You tell-
move my wrist a little bit?
You need to sit though. You tell her you've got an average sized penis. Why would you say that to a child?
Well, I thought she was 19 because the whole.
It doesn't.
You did not. Man, this dude is fucking.
I thought it was a social security number and the.
There's no
I didn't
social
want
security number.
ID. Yeah, that's stupid.
That's
So the ID
yeah.
thing on the website.
How does a guy level of intelligence get caught in a situation like this?
Well, because she opened the door and she looked 19.
Okay, but you drove
I
how
know,
long
I
today? How
know.
long did you drive today?
Well, I'm coming home
From
Ann Arbor.
Ann Arbor. And what are you doing in Ann Arbor?
I was going to U of M to see my friends.
So your friends at University of Michigan, and you came back up here because you go to school at where? Michigan Tech?
Yeah. Oh my God.
And do you live
Stupid.
on your own, or do you live with your parents, or your parents?
Are they gonna know about this?
Well,
Please.
it's up to you to tell them.
Please.
But again, I have a hard time.
Can I talk to the
You can.
police
They're going to want to
officer?
talk to you in a minute once
But
we're
I
finished.
don't-
But I need you to
Dude,
explain to
do
me
I have
how
to
a
consent
20.
to this?
No, you don't, because it's a commission of a crime.
Well, no, but like consent to this whole.
No, you
Well,
walked in here without a reasonable
Well, no, but
expectation of
can I?
privacy.
Yeah, but to this interview.
You're in the commission of a
I know,
felony.
but can I?
You can say whatever you want.
Can I not consent to be in this?
You can say whatever you
I don't
want.
consent to be in this.
But it doesn't matter because you committed a felony by walking in here with no reasonable expectation for privacy.
Well-
Dylan, you understand that, right? You committed the crime here.
Yeah, this ain't your house. You got no reasonable expectation, just like you said.
I didn't know.
You didn't know. What is a 22-year-old, almost 22-year-old engineering aerospace student trying to meet a child for sex?
I wasn't.
What do you mean you weren't? Did you bring condoms? Did you bring condoms?
Yes, Chris,
Yeah,
call him out.
Okay.
You
I
told me you
know.
wanted her to
I
wear
was
a
just
skirt and
curious.
leggings.
Can I?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. I want to hear all about it.
I know. I'm stupid. I know. Because the thing is, I'm really stupid. 'Cause I
Yeah,
didn't
you
think
are.
This would I was curious if this would actually happen.
You're really fucking sick, is what it is.
That was my main goal.
You were curious to
That
see
was my
if-
main. That
but
was my
I was
main-
going to be here with a crew.
Honestly, yeah, that was my main thing. Honestly, because I was stupid curious, and I was like, I wonder if they have like the cameras or stuff.
Yeah.
Like I was just curious
Oh my
about
God. Get the fuck out of here. As if if even that was remotely even possible that it would matter.
Are you still curious,
And-
or you're all
No,
caught up now?
no, yeah, no, I'm not curious.
So you
Huh,
know
you're
who I
not
am.
curious now.
You know what I do?
Catches people like you.
Your parents work at the university?
Uh-oh.
No.
Oh.
What do they do?
Regular jobs.
Regular jobs. Have you
I'm
hooked
so
up with?
sorry.
Have you hooked up with underage girls before online?
Uh-oh.
No,
Well,
I was-
don't look at me like that. That's
no,
a natural
no,
question.
I know, but I know it is now
mean-
because I look like a. I know what I look
Look like a what?
Terrible person. I know I do. I'm not gonna say that because if she was actually 15, I would not have done it. But I know that saying it now, like you
Yeah,
don't
now that
believe
you're
me,
caught.
you don't believe me, or I'm.
I don't
What
believe
do
you.
you say to help
Wow.
me to
I
understand
never,
how a
You know-
bright kid
you know,
with a bright future
can I-
got himself into this situation.
Yeah.
Can you what? Go to jail? Yeah. You can go to jail.
Yeah.
That's the only thing you can do.
Yeah, this is the worst mistake I've ever made in my life. Because I know I was just dumb curious about if the cameras would be here.
Every time this dude says this shit, I want to slap the piss out of him.
And yeah, they were. Because the thing is, if there was someone like, because the thing is, I was actually worried that she was being like pimped out or something. And
I don't believe you, you little wheezing liar.
I was worried about it. But then,
Why didn't you call police then?
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm done.
Again, it doesn't make
I'm done.
sense.
I'm done. Yeah.
You had the address. You're not the police. If you were worried, you could have called the police.
Sounds like you
I know.
were
I was
horny
just-
and
I-
wanted to have sex with a 15-year-old girl. Well,
Yeah,
that's what the chat said.
I know.
What am I to make of it?
That's what the chat says. That's what it is. You can keep saying all the bullshit you want. That's what it is.
I know.
Dylan,
I know,
the
I
chat is the chat.
I know.
You showed up
I know.
with condoms in your
sorry.
pocket.
I know.
Yep.
Excited to meet her. You talked about going out to your car to get.
Yeah.
She said she's got it. You talk about the
'cause
place.
that's another. Yeah, I know.
Keep saying I know. Every time you say that, you're just admitting culpability.
I'm.
Yeah, you also talked about smoking weed out that little bong right there. That quintessential clean bong with a nice little convenient grinder sitting next to it.
I mean, what's the best
Am I?
light I can
Can
shine on
can I
this?
ask the police something, please, or no?
Of course you can.
Can I walk over there? I don't want to be.
Well, you got to ask permission from them.
Eh,
Can I ask?
Is there
the
anything
police?
else? Is there anything else you want to say to me?
Not really, no.
Okay. And what do you say to your parents?
Are they gonna see? Are you gonna send this to them?
I'm not going to send it to them, but it's going to be on takedown with Chris Hansen.
They might
What
see
are you
it.
saying for me?
I can't say anything, my folks, because I don't even know what I want to. This might be.
How do you justify this?
You don't. That's the
They
problem.
may
Say your
not
friends
talk
who
to you.
just left in Ann Arbor at the University of Michigan,
Parents,
who think you're
some
an
parents would
upstanding
be
student.
so. Some parents would probably hate this,
You ruined your life, Dylan, when you decided to come over
even
here
if it's
and have
their own
sex with
kid
15
doing it.
I was good because you're not gonna believe me when I said I.
Well, try me. Try me.
Because they wouldn't have you got to understand. He needs to understand. His parents would hate and want to see whatever happened if somebody had done that to him if he was young. So his parents, and I don't feel bad for him, but they may and maybe they shouldn't not talk to him.
This is gonna be everywhere.
But then again, they are his parents, so that's up to them.
Isn't it? This is gonna be everywhere. All my friends are gonna see it.
I think that's the least of your worries.
This might have ruined my life. This might have actually ruined my life.
What do you do? How do you get out of this?
Might have.
I may never know exactly what Dylan was going
Might-
to tell
Might have ruined your life. It has.
me next because another man just pulled into the driveway.
Okay, that's it. These guys want to see you.
It's a bad dash to get everyone back into position. The team whisks Dylan to an awaiting vehicle. Dylan, aka Jose, was charged with 4 felonies, costing a child for immoral purposes, child sexually abusive activity, and 2 counts of using a computer to commit a crime. After he was arraigned, Dylan was released on a personal recognizance bond. As you await
I don't agree with that. They gave him a fucking PR bond
his day in court. Marquette County Sheriff Greg Seibert
on a 4 felony of those type of charges. You get a. Well, that is some bullshit. I got charged with one thing before, one felony that I wasn't even guilty of, and they didn't give me no PR bond. I had to fucking bond out with like, what was it? It was a $10,000 bond, and I had to put up $1,000. You know, that's why I've never gotten hearing about all these people getting all these crazy, big, sometimes violent charges, getting fucking out on a PR bond. Fuck no.
And quit beating children.
Yeah. Yeah, mustard. So
Shit,
tired.
dude, they got Trudeau.
So tired of that condiment beating children.
The biggest pussy you could ever elect besides Biden.
Yep.
Made mistakes.
See, me and AD, that's one thing. Like, at least we have the same. We got the same political views about shit. I don't really know this Carl guy.
Come up here and tell me.
I don't watch him. Like, you know, I don't think he's a bad person. He don't seem like one to me.
We know
What do you mean it's Nashville hockey team? You're
the
like
ones that
talking
are
about the Predators? I love the Predators. Who's wearing it? And what about kids? What?
Have with me. It's not true. It's not true. That's all.
Because, like, I'm thinking,
Oh my God. Oh, I see now. Damn. Well, I mean, I talk about watching the people getting taken down, but I don't actually talk about actual incidences unless it's a long crime news report. But I know that's somebody that they fucking like to talk, people like to talk about him too. I don't know why. I don't know what he did. Oh, here's another one 6 hours ago. This must have been the second guy that came. Your discretion's advised.
On this episode of Takedown with Chris Hansen, this man just slipped his way into one of my investigations.
Why is there a camera on that corner? It is happening right here.
I mean, 26 and 15, that's not even a close call. You see why this is wrong.
Yes.
And he's not going to like what happens next.
Am I going to jail?
Yeah.
You are under arrest.
Fuck.
No, you're going to Disney. You're going to Disneyland. Where do you think you're going? Of course you're going to jail.
Do we have any pizza left?
Yeah, do we have any pizza left? Put it out here. Perfect.
I'm in Marquette County, Michigan, on one of the biggest child predator operations in the area. And the man the sheriff's office decoy is chatting with is 26-year-old Ryan. He's looking to meet up and have sex with a 15-year-old boy. The chat begins on a popular social media site and starts off pretty casual, but it quickly turns salacious. Ryan sends very graphic photos, which we can't share with you. The decoy clearly states he's younger, that he's only 15. But that's not dissuading Ryan because he says he's on his way. Everyone gets into position to await Ryan's arrival.
Fucking
Decoy, who
disgusting, mother.
he blurred to protect his identity, lets Ryan in.
Good. How are you? You just go ahead and sit down. I had some pizza earlier. I might have a little left if you want some. Good.
Ugh.
Did you bring anything?
Dude, looks disgusting. Ugh. Bitchin', you fucking. Oh, yeah, yeah. State that intent. Loud and clear.
You excited? Yeah. Can't wait. Do you vape at all? No. No, not at all. Want pizza or anything? I might have some extra pizza. No, I'm good. No. All right. Well, I'm gonna go grab my vape. Okay. I left it upstairs. I'll be right back. Cool.
Ryan gets comfortable, but I don't think he's going to be too comfy when I make an appearance.
Hey. How you doing? Good. How are you? What are you up to tonight? Nothing much. What's your name? Ryan. Ryan. How old are you, Ryan? I wasn't gonna do anything. You weren't gonna do anything? No.
Oh, my
How old
God.
are you? 26. 26. And what was your
First thing, I wasn't going to do anything.
I really don't know. You really don't know? No.
Yeah,
When
you do.
were online. Yeah. Talking to somebody who said they were 15. Yeah. Did that make you nervous at all? It did. What made you nervous about that? Just knowing that he wasn't the legal age. Right. And I figured that I would, come and see and talk. Right. And not do anything. Not do anything. No. But that's not what you indicated online. No. I'm sorry. You talk about bouncing on his.
Oh.
Oh my God. I'm so sorry. You talk about bringing lube. Yeah. Did you bring lube? I did. Would you put it on the edit right there? Yeah. The Astroglide. Why would a 26-year-old man bring Astroglide gel?
You motherfucking sick ass. He's sitting there. I'm sorry. I don't give a fuck. You're going to jail, bitch.
Oh, to meet a 15-year-old boy.
Nasty
You don't
motherfucker.
know. I think you do know, Ryan. I do. But I wasn't going to do anything. I know, but that doesn't make sense, Ryan. You brought gel to have sex with a child. I wasn't, more or less, I was thinking maybe he just needed it. He needed it for what? So that he could masturbate himself. So he could masturbate himself? Yes. So you're just going to bring a boy Astroglide gel so he could masturbate himself, and what were you going to do while he did that? Eat pizza? Have a soda pop? I don't know. You don't know? I don't know isn't a great answer, Ryan, because I don't think it's truthful. I didn't realize that he was 15. Yes, you did, because he told you, Ryan. So you're lying to me. What is happening right here? What is happening right here is that I'm confronting somebody who's 26 who tried to have sex with a 15-year-old child. Yes, and I know it's wrong. You know it's wrong? Yes.
Oh,
What
good.
do you do for a living, Ryan?
Thank you
I
for
work at a
admitting
financial
that.
institution. A financial institution.
As if that
And which
wasn't
financial
obvious.
institution do you work at? I am not going to disclose that. You're not going to, I'm going to find out. No, please.
Oh, shit.
Well, it's going to come out.
He said, I'm going to find
So you
out.
can tell me now or I can find out. I don't want to lose my job. Well, you shouldn't have come here to have sex with a 15-year-old. I'm sorry. What do you do at the
It
financial
doesn't matter if you're sorry.
I work in their operations.
I bet you really are now that
And
you're
what does
caught.
that entail? Card services. Card services. So you work with people's credit cards? And what do you do in card services?
I love how he's like, I don't want you to know. Please don't. And then he's sitting here answering more questions to help give him an idea to figure it out.
How does that work? I work with people via phone. Via phone. So people call up and they check their balances, and if there's fraud involved. Correct. Have you ever been in trouble with the law before? No.
You are now.
Have you ever met anybody else online before? No. So tonight,
You're in northern Michigan, the Upper Peninsula. You just decide to get on a social media platform
Yes.
and come see a 15-year-old boy for. This is the first time this has ever happened. You never thought of it. You never did it.
No.
Do you see why that is difficult for me to believe?
Yes.
If you were me, would you believe it?
No.
Okay, so then why should I believe it? I mean, 26 and 15, that's not even a close call.
No.
Where do you live, Ryan?
Nagani.
Where?
Nagani.
Nagani.
Yeah.
And you live alone?
Parents.
With your parents?
Yeah.
And what are your folks going to think about all this?
Oh my gosh.
You're going to be in deep.
Yeah.
And what's all this? Did you bring this or just the lube or what is all that?
This is my phone and my keys.
And you brought the,
And this.
did you buy that tonight?
No.
You just had it with you?
Correct.
So you just drive around with lube?
No. It was at my house.
It was at your house?
Yeah.
And you brought that specifically here? Did you bring anything else in your car?
No.
Did you bring condoms?
There might be condoms in my car.
There might
but
be condoms in your car. Are there any in your pockets?
No. I don't have pockets.
You see why this is wrong, right?
Yes.
What should happen to you?
What's the fee?
Hmm?
Why is there a camera on that corner?
Well, there's a camera around that corner because I'm Chris Hansen. And we do stories on adults who try to meet children for. Have you seen those stories before?
Yes.
The predator stories?
Yes.
This is one of them.
Why? What am I doing?
What do you mean? What are you doing?
Am I in deep trouble?
Yes.
It
Like,
appears
am I
that way.
gonna get charged?
Yes.
These people would like to talk to you. Is there anything else you want to say to
Of course.
anybody out there?
Dummy.
Well, I know that I did something wrong. I don't want to lose my job, and
Too bad.
I'm very, very sorry for even what I did. I shouldn't have even came here.
Why did you? I mean, help me to understand. I mean, based upon what you brought, based upon the conversation online, there is no other conclusion that I can reach besides you wanting to have sex with this 15-year-old boy.
I wasn't thinking clear.
You weren't thinking, were you on drugs?
No.
Were you drinking?
No. I just wanted to, find someone.
What do you think would have happened?
Dummy.
I probably would have talked to him and probably would have left.
Nasty, disgusting animal.
And
And
bounce
probably
on his.
no. I probably wouldn't
Those
have.
are your words, right? Am I making this up?
No, you are not making it up.
You're going to
Those are-
bring me down, is it?
No.
You didn't seem nervous. You said over here. What made you come?
Chris, he don't put up with no bullshit. He
Why did
reflects
I?
back.
I'm trying to figure out why I did anyway. I know I did wrong.
You know why.
I'll admit I did wrong, and I will take the, the consequence of it. But I just don't want to
Yes, you shall.
be losing my job.
What do you say to
Well,
other
those two kind of aren't compatible.
people on these social media platforms tonight who are talking to underage teens about sex?
That you should verify who you're speaking with.
And what's your biggest regret about this evening?
That I did not verify that, and that
Oh, you verified it.
he told me his age, and I just kept thinking, no, I don't think that's true. I mean, his profile said he was 18, so.
Well, everybody's profile has to be of a certain age, even a child. who gets it.
Correct.
That's right. But you went ahead and thought, he's hot, so I'm going to do it anyway. That's
Yeah.
basically it.
Oh, there it is.
So you were going to break the law because this boy was hot. You're going
I
to take
know.
advantage of somebody who was vulnerable, naive, and underage.
And I know I shouldn't be. I shouldn't.
That's,
I know.
All right, Ryan, anything else you want to tell people?
That, if it's It's wrong. I'll admit it. It's wrong. I am going to be taking myself off of that site. And, you know, looking at people my own age.
Do you have a college education?
Yes.
Where'd you go to school?
Northern.
Northern, right here in Marquette.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you study?
Business.
Business. All right.
And I'm actually going to be going and getting my master's degree.
You're going to get your master's.
Yep. No, I'm kicking my ass because I should have thought and I should have known, and I
Should have been at school.
know it. I don't know. I really don't know what to say anymore.
You're college educated. You're about to get your master's.
I didn't
You've got a
think.
good job.
I didn't think.
And here you are in a room
I didn't think.
with all of this.
I did not think.
All right. Well, Ryan, there's some people here who want to talk to you.
Okay.
You want to stand up?
Yeah.
Next. Don't put your hands behind your back.
Yep. Am I going to jail?
Yes, you are. You're under arrest.
It always amazes me how somebody can live a normal life, be well educated and have a good job in the daytime and be engaging in this sort of activity at night, knowing that it's illegal. It's a felony and that it could harm a child forever. That's Ryan.
Ryan was charged with 4 felonies, accosting a child for immoral purposes, child sexually abusive activity, and 2 counts of using a computer to commit a crime. He was released on a personal recognizance bond.
Oh my God. They just give them all PR bonds now. Fucking bullshit. Man, I wish I could play Red Dead 1 online, but I can't. You have to fucking have PS3 or Xbox 360. I can only play the story mode. That's all the port did.
Did you know that if in Red Dead Redemption 2, you go to this saloon and encounter this NPC, you should be ready to run really fast, because this will happen.
Well, well.
Hey, perdóname, señor.
No, por favor.
The hell?
Hey, whatever that was.
Esto es un gran malentendido. You want to be smart, amigo? Give it to me.
Did you know that if in Red Dead Redemption 2, you go to this saloon and encounter this NPC, you should be ready to run really fast, because this will happen.
Well, well.
Hey, perdóname, señor. No, por favor. The hell?
He took his gun. Hell no. Oh. Hell to the no. Everybody gangster till Arthur pulls up the mod menu. Oh, there's the full one. I never was able to find this. Yeah, this is him coming down this is the full thing. That's Ken Katsouris to the left there. He was the sheriff, and he's the one that was tasked with keeping Bundy. He had Bundy in a cell that had armored plating around it, and he was not letting him get out. He said, "You will not get out, and they will not lose you. We won't lose you like Colorado did." And every time he was transported to court or the hospital or somewhere, he ended up developing the thing called hold on. Let me show you. It's called the Bundy brace. There's got to be a picture of one. I guess they don't show a picture of it for security reasons, but here's a guy that was going to be put in one. I'll just describe what it is. Before Bundy's first trial began, the judge refused to allow Bundy to appear in chains as it might prejudice the jury. The county sheriff, Ken Katsaris, knew that if he didn't do something to ensure that Bundy would have limited movement, his department might have another escape. Thinking outside of the box, Katsaris reached out to a specialist who helped him design a spring-loaded orthopedic device that would lock Bundy's leg when he walked. If he wanted to flex his legs, he would have to hold the brace or walk with his legs locked. The brace satisfied the judge because it couldn't be seen when Bundy entered the courtroom. Interesting to note, the Bundy brace is still in use today. So it basically restrains one leg that each time you walk. It'll allow you to walk, but you have to do it in a certain weird, it's a really clunky way that you have to do it. So basically you can't run. You can't move fast.
Gentlemen, I'm not going to be paraded through. Step out.
He said, gentlemen, I'm not going to be paraded through. He tried to maintain such a calm disposition about himself.
Mr. Bundy. What do we have here, Ken? Let's see. Oh, it's an indictment, all right. Why don't you read it to me? You're on up for election, aren't you? Mr. Bundy? You got it, didn't you? Mr. Bundy? You told me that you were going to get me. He said he was going to get me, okay? You've got the indictment. It's all you're going to get. Let's read it. Let's go. Theodore Robert Bundy, you are charged, indictment, 2 counts burglary and 2 counts murder in the first degree, 3 counts attempted murder in the first degree. In the name of and by the authority of the state of Florida, the grand jurors of the state of Florida impaneled and sworn to inquire and true presentment make in and for the county of Leon upon their oaths do present that Theodore Robert Bundy on the 15th day of January 1978 in Leon County, Florida, did then and there unlawfully enter or remain in a structure located at 661 West Jefferson Street, the dwelling of Karen Chandler and or Kathy Kleiner with the intent to commit the offense of battery therein. In the course of committing such burglary, said Theodore Robert Bundy did make an assault upon Karen Chandler and or Kathy Kleiner, contrary to section 81002 Florida statutes. And your grand jurors being present in said court further gives the court to be informed and understand that Theodore Robert Bundy on the 15th day of January 1978 in Leon County, Florida, did then and there unlawfully kill a human being, to wit, Margaret Bowman, by strangling and or beating her, and said killing was perpetrated by said Theodore Robert Bundy from or with a premeditated design or intent to effect the death of said Margaret Bowman, contrary to section 78204 Florida statutes. And your grand jurors being present in said court further gives the court be informed and understand that Theodore Robert Bundy on the 15th day of January 1978 in Leon County, Florida, did then and there unlawfully kill a human being, to wit, Lisa Levy, by strangling and or beating her, and said killing was perpetrated by said Theodore Robert Bundy from or with a premeditated design or intent to effect the death of said Lisa Levy. My chance to talk to the press. Contrary to section 78204 Florida statute. I'll plead not guilty right now. And your grand jurors being present in said court further gives the court to be informed and understand that Theodore Robert Bundy on the
Pompous little prick.
15th day of January in Leon County, Florida, did then and there unlawfully attempt to kill a human being, to wit, Karen Chandler, by beating her about the head and knowingly or intentionally causing great bodily harm. And said attempt was perpetrated by said Theodore Robert Bundy from or with a premeditated design or intent to effect the death of said Karen Chandler, contrary to section 77704, 778204 Florida statutes. And your grand jurors being present in said court further give the court to be informed and understand that Theodore Robert Bundy on the 15th day of January in Leon County, Florida, did then and there unlawfully attempt to kill a human being, two-way Kathy Kleiner, by beating her about the head and knowingly or intentionally caused grave bodily harm, and said attempt was perpetrated by said Theodore Robert Bundy from or with a premeditated design or intent to effect the death of said Kathy Kleiner, contrary to section 77704, 78204 Florida statute. And your grand jurors being present in said court further give the court to be informed and understand that Theodore Robert Bundy on the 15th day of January in Leon County, Florida, did then and there unlawfully enter or remain in a structure located at 431A Dunwoody, the dwelling of Cheryl Thomas, with the intent to commit the offense of battery therein. And in the course of committing such burglary, the said Theodore Robert Bundy did make an assault upon Cheryl Thomas, contrary to section 81002 of Florida statutes. And your grand jurors being present in said court further give the court to be informed and understand that Theodore Robert Bundy on the 15th day of January 1978 in Leon County, Florida, did then and there unlawfully attempt to kill a human being, two-wit Cheryl Thomas, by beating her about the head and knowingly or intentionally causing great bodily harm. And said attempt was perpetrated by said Theodore Robert Bundy from or with a premeditated design or intent to effect the death of said Cheryl Thomas, contrary to section 7704 and 78204 Florida statutes. Contrary to the form of the statute in such case made and provided against the peace and dignity of the state of Florida. That is the indictment handed down by the grand jury. This is the capias for your arrest for burglary of the dwelling, 2 counts, murder first degree, 2 counts, attempted murder first degree, 3 counts. I am commanded to keep you in safe custody and bring you before the spring term of the Circuit Court 1978 to for the pending court of this county for those charges that I just read to you in case number 78-670, State of Florida versus Theodore Robert Bundy. Is that my copy? No, it is not. Here's your copy. We have your copy. You have the copy.
How about the cases?
You'll get that.
I talked to the press. I mean, we've had our chance. We've displayed the prisoner now. I think it's Pardon me, which one?
I think that,
well, listen, I've been kept in isolation for 6 months. I've been kept away from the press. I've been buried by you. You've been talking for 6 months. I think it's my turn now. All right?
we got a court order that there won't be any press interviews.
Sure, there won't be any press interviews. You've given them out. I'm gagged. You're not.
Okay. Count Ryder will read your
I'll
right.
be heard.
Yeah, and you fried too. You not only were heard, you were fried.
Today we're going to talk. Go ahead. You go, because I'm just going to take me a couple shots anyway. What do you got? You do it.
Nothing. You want me to do the intro?
Yeah, you do it this time. Let's see if you can do it without laughing. Go.
Well, today we're going to talk about Ted Bundy, a serial killer, 30 known victims so far. Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, 30 confessions. God knows how many others, I think. And this is Dr. James Dobson, who ran a show and a foundation called Focus on the Family. He is a psychologist. He's also a conservative. And
basically, I want to get.
We're going to see somebody selling a lie on purpose and another.
That I encountered outside the home again, in the local grocery store, the local drugstore, the softcore pornography, what people call softcore. But as I think I explained to you last night, Dr. Dobson, in an anecdote, that as young boys do, we explored the back roads and sideways and byways of our neighborhood, and oftentimes people would dump the garbage and whatever they were cleaning out of their house, and from time to time we'd come across pornographic books of a harder nature than more graphic, you might say, more explicit nature than we would encounter, let's say, in your local grocery store. And this also included such things as, let's say, detective magazines and more those that involve violence. Yes, and I and this is something I think that I want to emphasize is the most damaging kinds of pornography. And again, I'm talking from personal experience, hard, real personal experience. The most damaging kinds of pornography are those that involve violence and sexual violence. because the wedding of those two forces, as I know only too well, brings about behavior that is just too terrible to describe.
Now,
all right, Chase, what do you got?
He's being like eerily creepy and prophetic in that, as if. And what's fucked up is that he says that, and that's something straight that like Dobson and other people he was reaching out to do these interviews to, that they had, you know, he said he's basically just agreeing with their message. This was his attempts at trying to get a stay of execution and all that.
Yeah, if you want to know how somebody secretly feels, ask them how they think most people feel about a certain issue. You'll get their truthful response. What we're seeing is that he thinks most people are like him, and we're seeing him kind of selling that. He uses the word "we" to describe antisocial behavior at the beginning here. We're going to see this come up again. And with these critical moments, you can see how he was seen as charming. These eyebrow flashes to the interviewer at these key points, and when he wants to be self-deprecating in order to get you to like him. And he uses the term wedding to talk about violence and pornography coming together. And I think this is a key element here. This reveals more than if he would say something like joining or meeting those two things together. And this is a wedding he's referring to, a union of things that were destined to be together, or maybe a joining of two things that should always be together. And I think that's what we're really hearing. And each one of these videos, I'm going to share with you a fun fact about this, some research that was done at the University of Kentucky, which is the largest research project on Ted Bundy. So according to these clinical and forensic psychologists, one of the leads was named Daryl Turner, Dr. Daryl Turner. Ted Bundy is basically textbook definition of a prototypical psychopath, end quote. Greg, what do you got?
I'm laughing. I'm sorry because you said fun facts about psychopaths. Sorry, dude. That totally
Well, you
hit
talk
me
about psychopaths all the time, so it's fun. That's okay.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
You want to hand it off? Or you want to just go from there?
No, go ahead.
Okay, good. Yeah, so guys, here's the thing. Chase, I'm with you. What we project onto other people is what we want them to be, or what we perceive ourselves to be in those cases. And you see a little bit of that here. This doctor is talking to him and looking for reasons why this monster was created. And he's going to certainly give him that. What we're watching is a master manipulator at work. And this is probably my favorite of all the things I've seen on Ted Bundy. The only reason we did it is because this is so masterful. What we're seeing here is a psychopath at work in the same way he would work someone before he caved their head in with a stick or whatever he did to all these people. And he just doesn't get that opportunity because he's caged and his fangs are removed. So we get to watch him right here be exactly who he is, and he's doing it exactly that. Watch as he talks. When he pontificates, and he's here to pontificate, make no mistake. He needs to still be pertinent and still be somebody who matters, because he is a horrific narcissist. You're going to see it all through this whole thing. We'll listen for language and we'll point it out. He starts off, I love Chasey's using your closed eye talking. Well, it's good for the environment as he's pontificating. Every time he pontificates, he closes his eyes and does that closed eye talking. And then when he wants to make a point about the story he wants this guy to buy, locked eye contact and brow up. Those are his key points in every story. There's also a lot of tongue jutting. So let's start looking at tongue jutting to see if it means anything, or is it a pattern for him throughout this whole thing? And you'll see that he has a tale that he's trying to get out here as he goes through. Everything he's going to talk about is going to be grand. It's the reason he uses words like wedding. The reason he uses these complex words, because narcissists don't want anything to be normal in their life. Their friends are cooler and faster and prettier. Everybody they know is smarter, and they use self-aggrandizing language. And you're going to see a lot of that as we go through here. And then when he starts talking about, he does one of my favorite things that I haven't ever seen anybody do but him and maybe Casey Anthony. And that's this pop his eyes really big and look under his brows and pull his head back. It is such a weird look. And he does that every time he's trying to get something. At the very close of the video, I'll cut this short. At the very close of the video, stop and look. There's absolute disdain in that guy's face for the guy he's talking to. This is a piece of work. This is a wild animal in a cage. Thank God they found the cure for him, and they cured him the next day. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so I'm going to say this. We're going to see two master manipulators. We're going to see some...
Yeah, he was literally doing that shit the day before, trying to hope to God he wasn't going to die the next day. Yeah, or hope to say whatever he believed in. He was praying and everything. Like he went limp when it was time to walk down the corridor. They had to pretty much carry him.
Somebody selling a lie on purpose and another person buying a lie on purpose. And I think that's, for me, is what is most exciting about this, is we're going to see somebody spinning and the other person using that spin for their purposes as well. But we'll get to that. Look, there's a lovely set of tongue juts there. But I think we're going to have to discount those all the way along because it's repetitive behavior. And also we've got to understand that along with this kind of what I will call gentlemanly behavior, we're always going to see this through the lens of Hannibal Lecter, I think. So when we see these things, we're going to see behaviors that we think we recognize as those of the psychopath. But that's simply because I think art has taken these and ramped the volume up on them. So just take that as context. We're always viewing this through somebody's performance of the quintessential psychopath anyway. Okay, what I love about his imagery here is he's saying he's the product of people throwing out trash, just as you say, the wedding of two forces, violence and sex. But those two things coming together is what people have thrown out in the back rows, the sideways and the highways. So that's kind of it. So often you'll find that geography, we call it psychogeography, the geography of a landscape or a home will have a correlation to the psychology of a person, or at least that is some traditional psychogeography. And we're going to see him use these ideas throughout. Now, why is that? Either he's incredibly up on his...
He was a psychology student.
Current psychology of the time, or he's a fully integrated human being, or he knows that's what the interviewer is looking for. That's what this interviewer will buy from him and actually wants to buy from him. We'll come to more of that later on, but just want to put that in your mind that he's already planted this idea of an understanding of the way the human mind might work and also the way society might work, and how somebody might be manipulated unwittingly by society's own trash to become that trash in our minds. Scott, what do you got on this one?
All right. I think we're seeing, like Greg was saying, everybody's nailed stuff on this. We're watching a psychopath be a psychopath. You're going to have certain feelings when you go through here. When you watch this guy and listen to him and talk to him, you look at him and you look at him watching this guy and the way he uses the words he describes what happened. Some of you all are going to feel like he might be okay. It wasn't that bad because, all people are, basically good. That's what you're going to think. That's that feeling you're going to get in here. So if you're wondering how they do it, this is how they do it. You're watching it happen, and it just gets better and better. And it seems a little boring as we go along, right? Because he's talking real low and all that. No, man, this is a psychopath doing what a psychopath does, and he would do it to you too. Keep in mind, this guy's a monster. He cut people's heads off. Didn't know that, did you? He cut some of these people's heads off and did weird things with it. With that situation happening, now can't be too graphic. So that's what we're seeing there. We're seeing a psychopath be a psychopath. Greg's the first one to say that. All right. We're seeing a severity softening. He starts talking about it like it was long ago. Then when he was a kid, this problem happened and all that. That strong eye contact, he's trying to gain his trust with him because the guy's there trying to find out what happened to him and why he's like this. And he's telling him what he thinks he wants him to hear or what he wants him to hear. So it's that huge guarding of the ego. That's what the psychopath is doing. You have to really be careful with the ego. So that's what he's doing. He's guarding the ego because this isn't his fault, man. No, it's not his fault. There's something else that's the fault. What's fault? It was pornography. That's what did it to him. So that's when he starts blaming everything on, and it just goes throughout the whole set of stuff we're watching. His voice tone, his cadence, everything's very smooth. He's got that low voice going. He talks to him, and he looks away. And as he looks away, he puts this pleasant look on his face, this kind of smiley looking face, because he's allowing him to look at him and watch him be a good person. and explain what's happening, what his problem is. So he's allowing him to watch that, watch him be that person. Oh, this is great stuff. This is classic stuff. Then he watch throughout these videos as well. He keeps breaking the contact with this guy to see what's happening over here on the other side of the room. Something's going on. It must be a doorway or something, people coming out, in and out. But he's alert. He's on alert for that. He keeps watching that. So his brain is on alert for things to happen. So he's clicking back into that animalistic part of him. But this is great. It's just going to get better as we go along. And I'm really excited about this, and I know you guys are too. Okay, we're good?
Yeah.
Let's move.
This is a message I want to get across. But as a young boy, and I mean a boy of 12 or 13, certainly, that I encountered outside the home again, in the local grocery store, the local drugstore, the softcore pornography, what people call softcore. But as I think I explained to you last night, Dr. Dobson, in an anecdote, that as young boys do, we explore the back roads and sideways and byways of our neighborhood, and oftentimes people would dump the garbage and whatever they're cleaning out of their house, and from time to time we'd come across pornographic books of a harder nature than more graphic, you might say, more explicit nature than we would encounter, let's say, in your local grocery store. And this also included such things as, let's say, detective magazines and more
those that involve violence.
Yes, yes, and I and this is something I think that I want to emphasize is the most damaging kinds of pornography. And again, I'm talking from personal experience, hard, real personal experience. The most damaging kinds of pornography are those that involve violence and sexual violence. Because the wedding of those two forces, as I know only too well, brings about behavior that is just too terrible to describe.
Now walk me through that. What was going on in your mind at that time?
Okay, before we go any further, I think it's important to me, and the people believe what I'm saying, to tell you that I'm not blaming pornography, and not saying that it caused me to go out and do certain things. And I take full responsibility for whatever I've done and all the things that I've done. That's not the question here. The question and the issue is how this kind of literature contributed and helped mold and shape the kinds of violent behavior.
It fueled your fantasies.
Well, in the beginning, it fuels this kind of thought process. Then at a certain time, it's instrumental in what I would say crystallizing it, making into something which is almost like a separate entity inside. And at that point, you're at the verge, or I was at the verge of acting out on these kinds of thoughts.
Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, lovely. Okay, so he uses the metaphor there of crystallizing the personality. That's really nice. So there's the idea of personalities being almost like crystallized facets. That's not something that he's suddenly come up with, that metaphor. That's quite a common metaphor in the persona metaphor that many psychologists at that time might well be adhering to. So at this point, I start to wonder, by the way, I've never met this guy before. I've never seen any video of him or the guy he's talking to. I understand a little bit, but not very much about his legend, but really nothing. But I start to think, why is he so up on his psychology here? Because he really is quite up. What you have to do in that model is integrate those facets. If you integrate those facets, we have different elements of our personality. And if one element doesn't know the other element is there, especially if one of those elements is quite dark and dangerous, then there's trouble. And he's really got a very good understanding of that at the time. So I start to think, who's he talking to? Who's he talking to? Why has he come up with this idea for this particular moment? Because me, with a bit of understanding of that analyst's point of view, I start to go, well, he's saying all the right stuff to make somebody like me go, he's either a fully integrated, spent 10 years from my understanding inside, either he's now fully integrated his personality and he totally understands, and maybe we should think about parole for this guy, or certainly he's maybe worth a bit of a reprieve because he's fully integrated himself. So why am I starting to think that? Because is he playing me? Because if he's playing me, he's not doing a bad job of it. Like, he's doing a pretty good job of playing me. Now, what he's not doing, because I don't hold the same values, his moral crusade piece isn't really hitting home with me very well. So then I start to go, oh, he's not playing me. So who is he playing? There's only one other person in the room. Is that person a doctor? Is that person a psychologist? Is that person some kind of moral crusader? Because both of those would work quite well. Anyway, good play, because he's got his vocabulary really well on both of those, both on the psychology standpoint and on the morality moral crusade standpoint. Really good job by him. Greg, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, so I'm going to take it down a little different path, but the same thing, because he is using the language of a psychologist everywhere you turn. But what I think he's doing is starting to weave his werewolf story. I said, Cat people, have you ever seen that movie? I wake up and horrible things have happened. This is what he's doing. He's starting to say, look, it's not me, it's the entity. It's the entity. Oh, it's the entity. That's handy. That's what I'm going to say. Next time I get pulled over for speeding, I'm going to say, I can't help it. It was the entity. I got this car. It made me drive fast. That's all he's starting down at. I agree with him, Mark. He says out loud what he is thinking for change. He says, it's important to me that people believe what I have to say. And when he does that, he goes to a modified steepling, and that's power or authority. And he's doing that's Burns from the Simpsons. Excellent. You see him doing that, but he's got amusement in his face. Now, he also has a snarky kind of a little smile naturally, a little smirk, but look at his face. It's not this, it's all of this in the center. He's smiling. His eyes are even smiling. His lower face isn't. So he's amused himself somehow. And then he goes into that worm on a griddle movement thing as he starts talking and trying to work out what he should say. And he's working around not blaming. And you see him when he hits key points to the story. And Mark, he starts to talk. Just, you can tell this is some psychology from prison. I need to take responsibility. There's his key point again. He's making those points. The tongue jot comes out at question here. And Mark, I'm with you. We see so many tongue jots that if it's distaste, then we got a problem. This is just getting you to follow down his path to believe what he believes. When Dobson says, it fueled your fantasies, you see disapproval in his face because he's trying to get a different message than that across. There's some other entity, there's some other thing. And then you even see a little engagement of the grief muscle and pursed lips as he's pushing that away. He's got to get across his key point. There's something else other than him. He illustrates with both hands, and he changes his cadence and he slows it. It was instrumental. And I think, Mark, you're dead on. He's been talking to this guy for a year. If you talk to a psychopath for a year, they know more about you than you know about you, because they don't have any thoughts of their own that are normal humans. So they need to understand what you're doing. And Scott, I'm sure somewhere in here we'll find out a little bit about sweet and sour chicken and how much they like it, because that's an important part of what we're seeing here. And then this is part of starting to be the darkest part. When Dobson actually says something, and he says, you've gone as far as you can, you see him put his hands up in a regulator. You got it. You got it. He goes, mm-hmm.
You had gone about as far as you could go in your own fantasy life with
that spider to the fly right there. Come on in. It'll be nice. Scott, what do you got?
All right, we're seeing matching and mirroring here. And if you'll listen to the way Bundy's talking, listen to the way the other guy's talking, they slowly begin to sound a lot alike. Listen to the words Bundy uses. They're really these jagged descriptive words that are really long words. The other guy's using these really simple short words. Now, Bundy does keep up with the long jagged words throughout because he's got points to make, and that's the way he makes those points. He uses those words so it sounds something very intellectual that is the reason that he's the way he is. But listen to how they start matching up, and how the cadence starts matching up as well. And watch the way he's sitting compared to the way the the interviewer is sitting, because he starts doing the exact same thing this guy is doing. When he starts working with his hands like this, he may open up a couple of times with his hands like that as well. But he does keep, I think you're right, Greg, he keeps that steepling situation happening. That's really, really important. So let's pay attention to how he's matching and mirroring what he's seeing and hearing from this guy, especially toward the end there, because, man, it gets good. Chase, what do you got?
So when he's saying I'm taking responsibility, this is kind of self-deprecating. And right here, you see an eyebrow flash. And if you go through all of this and just pick out key moments of where the eyebrows are going up, this is during some kind of admission or self-deprecating talk. And he's continuing during all of these key points in this video to do this exact same thing. All the ones we're going to see in the future, you'll see these little spikes in eyebrow flash during those key moments. This is a highly intelligent guy. And this is what they call a successful psychopath, because they're leveraging their capacity to use people as effectively as possible. This downward eye gaze is kind of an internal dialogue spot, an emotional dialogue spot where we might see. You'll see this in highly charismatic people, that they actually make less eye contact, then make strong, powerful eye contact at key moments. You'll see Bill Clinton do this. You'll see George Bush. You'll see Barack Obama do this. You'll see Tom Cruise do this a lot. And at the end, you can see this kind of scandal face here when he's talking about reaching a limit. You can see the Anthony Weiner scandal face right there. As our fact for this this clip, about 95% of the psychologists at the University of Kentucky study believe that Ted Bundy also showed signs of narcissistic personality disorder, which we're very familiar with if you're a subscriber to the channel.
Now, walk me through that. What was going on in your mind at that time?
Okay, before we go any further, I think it's important to me, and the people believe what I'm saying, to tell you that I'm not blaming pornography and not saying that it caused me to go out and do certain things. And I take full responsibility for whatever I've done and all the things that I've done. That's not the question here. The question and issue is how this kind of literature contributed and helped mold and shape the kinds of violent behavior.
It fueled your fantasies.
Well, in the beginning, it fuels this kind of thought process. Then at a certain time, it's instrumental in what I would say crystallizing it, making it into something which is almost like a separate entity inside. And at that point, you're at the verge, or I was at the verge of acting out on these kinds of thoughts.
Now, I really want to understand that. You had gone about as far as you could go in your own fantasy life with printed material, and you made or printed and video or film
magazines,
yeah.
What have you.
And then there was the urge to take that little step or big step over to a physical event.
And it happens. It happened in stages, gradually. It doesn't necessarily, not to me at least, happen overnight. My experience with, I'd say, pornography generally, but with pornography that deals on a violent level with sexuality, is that once you become addicted to it, and I look at this as a kind of addiction, like other kinds of addiction, I would keep looking for more potent, more explicit, more graphic kinds of material. Like an addiction, you keep craving something which is harder, something which gives you a greater sense of excitement, until you reach the point where the pornography only goes so far. You reach that jumping off point where you begin to wonder if maybe actually doing it will give you that which is beyond just reading about it or looking at it.
How long?
All right, Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, at printed material, he does a couple of things that make me want to dig in. He does an in-breath of apprehension, like he's going to ask something a little further. And then he says, and his blink rate increases, which is uncharacteristic for him. So something's going on. And when he says printed material, he goes down some path and says, and other, and what have you. Well, hold on. That's a lead. That is a lead. When a person says, and what have you, we always say intelligence hates ambiguity. You would ask, even though you might not want to know the answer, in this case, you would ask, what other things did you do? Because you're probably going to find there's something more in here than what he's letting on, because he has apprehension, he has a blink rate that increases, and he shows some disdain. He pulls those sides of his mouth back, not just a lip compression, but a pull back. He does that tongue jut again. Mark, I'm with you. This is just what he does. Then he starts to pontificate. Here's the thing. I'll call him KP. I got it written down. The same thing, Chase. We're talking about key points: sexuality and addiction. Front of mouth talking a little bit. Scotty does your fading facts as he's telling you, drifts off the end. And he then tries to get his point across. I look at this as a point of addiction. He's working this guy. He knows what this guy wants to hear, and he's feeding him exactly that. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, I think that's why you get that intake of breath on just published materials, because he wants the interviewer to bring up the idea of video and cable as well, because that's the bigger hit here. That's the real target here. That's how both of them can leave their mark on this. He knows it, and the interviewer knows it. It's just the interviewer hasn't quite latched on to the way that they're both going to go on this one. He will do eventually. He'll help him out in the end, sort out what the biggest target is for both of them. But at this point he's pushing all the right buttons. He's throwing all the right switches here, because we've got addiction to the thrill. Now, that is true for the psychopath. There's an addiction. There is a need for bigger and bigger and bigger boosts of adrenaline, but also it pulls that switch on addiction. We're at the time here of Reagan, of Nancy Reagan, of Just Say No, of one of the biggest threats to conservative America is drugs. And so this person is addicted. They are a result of this this terrible social drug situation. So this is not a perpetrator. He's now put himself in the victim role because he is an addict. But no mention at all of the victims at all. Nothing so far. Haven't heard a victim mentioned at all. So at the same time as him having this gentlemanly scholar air around him, which is a lovely kind of trope of crime throughout history, of the highly social, antisocial person. It's the Pink Panther, essentially, the gentleman thief. It's just here we have the gentleman psychopath, extreme abusive murderer. I mean, it's just one of the most extreme examples, but they're portraying this gentleman attitude on us at the same time. It's a beautiful play. It's exactly what we want as a TV watching public, as a video watching public. He's giving us the exact two extremes that we want. It's exactly what Sir Anthony Hopkins made Hannibal Lecter out of. He's a gentleman and he's an extreme psychological scholar at the same time. It's exactly what the audience want to see, to have what we call an allotropic response, which is you want to lean in and look, and at the same time, you just can't look. The two things are playing at the same time. Highly entertaining. But is he really this gentleman scholar, or is he just cold? Well, we know what he is in the end, but we know what he's trying to play here. And I just want you to keep noticing how this interviewer is a little more complicit than he's being played, or certainly the lie being told is a useful lie for this particular interviewer. And again, we'll see that play out. Scott, what do you got on this one?
I think he gets lost in there. I think you're seeing a little bit of that panic on him. I think is the part of what we're seeing is getting lost, because he's got a lot he wants to say. He's got tons of stuff. He wants to make sure he gets a specific point across. When he starts going down that part where you're talking about, Greg, where we see his blink rate go up, and Mark, we're talking about where things he gets kind of boxed in there. I think he gets lost and loses his train of thought in there. I think that's what that is, because he's thinking about two things at once. It's hard to keep two different things happening in your mind at the same time, two separate thoughts. He's trying to keep this guy on. As he charms him, he's trying to get his point across at the same time. So go along with that Ridley Stroop experiment, it's tough to keep two things going at once. So I think that's what we're seeing there is that fight for one thought as it goes, try to meld them into one. So I think he got lost a little bit, and that's where some of the panic is coming. Not panic, but some of the stress is coming from that. He's still trying to keep things clinical and make it sound like he's just. You're right, Mark. He's this guy doing this, but there's this clinical thing going on with it because he's fine. Nothing wrong with this guy, and you're seeing him be that gentleman because that's his charming part. He's trying to charm the pants off this guy and everybody else too. But like you said earlier, Greg, that's what happens. They do that to you, and the next thing you know, they go, "What's that over there, man? Is that yours?" And you look over there and you get clonked in the head, and then who knows what's going to happen after that. So I don't know. I think this is getting more exciting as it goes. Chase, what do you got?
Yeah, if he is trying to do something and the other guy is not really following along, not really picking up on it, I'd say that might be an Inspector Clouseau moment right there to go with your Pink Panther metaphor. But we saw it one time in the last video, and we're seeing it again here. You can hear him using the word "you" to talk about the journey that he took to becoming a serial killer. He corrects it this time, and he owns it. So he corrects himself. And now toward the end of this clip, you can hear him transition to no longer talking about himself at all. He is fully distanced from this behavior, wanting to socialize it with a shift in the pronoun. Everything is about you, you get this, you get this. This is what pornography does to you. Everything's about someone else and about the person listening. But he's making these eye contact at these critical points, just like highly charismatic politicians do, spending almost all of his time looking away to this down to his right. And let's talk about Dorothy O. Lewis, who's an MD. She's a psychiatrist from the New York University Medical Center who specializes in evaluating violent offenders. She actually tried to save Bundy from death row, with the argument being that he suffered from bipolar personality disorder and that he shouldn't be in jail because of that. I'll leave that to you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
Out on these kinds of
Now, I
thoughts.
really want to understand that. You had gone about as far as you could go in your own fantasy life with printed material, and you made or printed in video or film or
film,
photos,
magazines,
yeah.
what have you.
And then there was the urge to take that little step or big step over to a physical event.
And it happens. It happened in stages, gradually. It doesn't necessarily, not to me at least, happen overnight. My experience with, I'd say, pornography generally, but with pornography that deals on a violent level with sexuality, is that once you become addicted to it, and I look at this as a kind of addiction, like other kinds of addiction, I would keep looking for more potent, more explicit, more graphic kinds of material. Like an addiction, you keep craving something which is harder, something which gives you a greater sense of excitement, until you reach the point where the pornography only goes so far. You reach that jumping off point where you begin to wonder if maybe actually doing it will give you that which is beyond just reading about it or looking at it.
How long?
Reading about it or looking at it.
How long did you stay at that point before you actually assaulted someone?
Well, yeah, you see, that is a very delicate point in my own development. And we're talking about having reached the point or a gray area that surrounded that point over a course
You don't
of
remember
years.
how long that
Well, I would say a couple of years. And what I was dealing with there were very strong inhibitions against criminal behavior or violent behavior that had been conditioned into me, bred into me in my environment, in my neighborhood, in my church, in my school. Things which said, no, this is wrong. Even to think of it as wrong, but certainly to do it is wrong. And I'm on that edge, and you might say the last vestiges of restraint the barriers to actually doing something were being tested constantly and assailed through the kind of fantasy life that was fueled largely by pornography.
Did you remember?
Okay, Chase, what do you got?
Yeah, it makes some pretty strong eye contact again. Right when he's mentioning church and school, he gives this big list, but just makes eye contact when he's talking about, I go to church and I went to school. And he wants you to know that. And he corrects his pronoun shift again here when he says, you're on that edge. And then he says, I'm on that edge. And when he's saying this is largely fueled by pornography, there's a huge eyebrow flash for approval here to the interviewer. His cadence here is different than any other time that he's really spoken, which is few. There's not a whole lot of video, audio of him out there, but it's turned into this clinical sterility of a doctor explaining something complex to a patient who doesn't get it. And he's essentially building this in a way where he's not saying it directly, but letting you feel clever for tying the two things together. Like all of this is the reason for those murders. And it's kind of like when you watch the news and they talk about a woman being killed, but earlier her and her boyfriend were seen shouting at each other. They don't tie it together. They get to make you feel clever for tying those two things together. So you're more likely to watch the show later that evening. So let's go back to the University of Kentucky real quick. The majority of that same group of about 100 psychologists and psychiatrists in this University of Kentucky study said that Bundy was above the diagnostic thresholds for a borderline. The borderline personality disorder affects anywhere between 2 to 6% of the United States population. And people with borderline tend to feel emotions intensely, which may be why not all of the psychologists felt that Bundy fell into this category of mental health illness. Scott, what do you got?
All right. This made him uncomfortable getting in there because from what he's talking about. So he has to take a minute. That's why you hear that throat clearing and all that, because it sort of brings everything to a halt and he's got to think about, oh gosh, got to set this up and deliver this right. So that's for all the little things we see in there that let us know that he's uncomfortable. This is the question he was waiting on. He's been waiting to make his point from that question at this point. So he wasn't ready for it and it caught him off guard. And this one's going to be short because I got so much to go here in a little while. I'm going to start making mine a little bit short right here. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so there's a real rhythm change here from how direct he was before to how indirect he is. In fact, it isn't really until he lands the end of that sentence, right at the end of that clip, that any of it really makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of kind of word salad in there. So I think, yeah, he is failing to find the same persona to illustrate or describe being closer to his acts of sexual violence. I think that's where the question was going, is the question is getting closer to one of those acts or a first act. And as he gets closer to that act or first act, he doesn't have the erudite wordsmithing that he had because he's getting closer to the actual feelings that come over him during that, which he doesn't have words to describe. He has no, as we often do, we don't have words to describe even our mildest feelings. Think about the kinds of emotions that are going through somebody who's committing acts at his level. How do you describe that? And how do you describe that if your whole story is one of, this is actually a clinical thing based around conditioning, based around genetics, based around clinical persona theory? He set up this whole idea of, this is a bunch of psychology going on that I understand very well. And you, my specific audience in front of me, the interviewer, you could totally understand why this happens in this way. The psychological, medical reasoning for this, he's lost reasoning because you probably don't have a great deal of social reasoning for doing what he did. So he's totally in the dark right now, I would suggest, which is why he can't form sentences. But he gets back on message because he really lands it in the pornography right at the end. So he's back in there, and he's back entirely with what will connect best with the Christian right at that point. So I'm getting the sense that his mark here is not just this person in front of him, but a whole section of society. He's marked them out as the target for his for this interview, because there's something instrumental that he wants them to do, and this interviewer is the conduit for that action. At this point, I'm not quite sure what it is, but I come a little surer later on. And the interviewer would like it as well. So the interviewer is going to become more complicit as we go along on this. But I love how he loses all sense at this point. He doesn't have a description as he gets closer to the act. Greg, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, Mark, I think we're going to see a lot later of his inability to describe how that feels, but it'll show in him. What I think here is this is exactly what made him successful as a predator. And because he can be fallible and human, you see it here. Whether that's intentional, I don't know, but there's at least one or two indicators that I think he actually is intentionally stumbling through words so that he can redirect the conversation and keep it about the problem, not about him. We know that he faked arm injury, had a fake cast to lure one woman in at least, and maybe many others, so that he uses weakness as that frailty, that human frailty, as a way to get other people's sympathy. I think this is a clear demonstration of what made this organism successful, and he's just doing it again. When he does his key points, Chase, I'm with you. If we turn off all the sound and watch through here and see this, we'll have every key point to the story he wants you to believe. Now, when he does the taffy drawing, taffy pulling with his eyes, that's even more profound. And he does that in this one. When he's asked the question and he wants to redirect, Dobson is trying to take him down the path of tell me about what happened the first time. And he didn't want to go there. So he uses filler words and he pontificates and redirects instead of chaff and redirects. And he clears his voice with, I think this is him doing it. He avoids the question entirely and then gets back to his point of being able to talk. If you don't believe he's doing something, pay attention to his cadence. It slows at against criminal behavior, hard eye contact. Then he goes to, he's talking about church. And when he does that church, he makes really hard eye contact again and his cadence is down, his brow is up. Then he uses words, again, words that average people, Scott, I'm surprised you didn't say, real people don't talk like that. The last vestiges of whatever, he had there. He does hard eye contact again. Then he stumbles over the words assault, assail. I think that's a legitimate mistake on his part because you can see displeasure in his face when he does it. And then he does another source lead that I would crawl all over when he says the fantasy life that was fueled largely by porn. Largely, what does that mean? What else fueled it? What else caused that? And after he says pornography, he does a tongue jut. We don't think that means anything, but he also does a lip compression. When you have that much deviation, I would lean into that last sentence really hard to try to figure out, well, if it was largely fueled by that, what else caused it? And that's what I got.
Reading about it or looking at it.
How long did you stay at that point before you actually assaulted someone?
Well, yeah, you see, that is a very delicate point in my own development. And we're talking about having reached a point or a gray area that's surrounded that point over a course
you don't
of
remember
years.
How long that
Well, I would say a couple of years. And what I was dealing with there were very strong inhibitions against criminal behavior or violent behavior that had been conditioned into me, bred into me in my environment, in my neighborhood, in my church, in my school. Things which said, no, this is wrong. I mean, even to think of it as wrong, but certainly to do it is wrong. And I'm on that edge, and you might say the last vestiges of restraint. The barriers to actually doing something were being tested constantly and assailed through the kind of fantasy life that was fueled largely by pornography.
Do you remember?
By pornography.
Do you remember what pushed you over that edge? Do you remember the decision to go for it? Do you remember where you decided to throw caution to the wind?
Again, when you say pushed, I know what you're saying. I don't want to infer again.
I understand that.
That I was
That point
that I was
clear.
some helpless kind of a victim, and yet we're talking about an influence, that is the influence of violent types of media and violent pornography, which was an indispensable link in the chain of behavior, the chain of events that led to the behaviors, to the assaults, to the murders, and what have you. It's a very difficult thing to describe. The sensation, of reaching that point where I knew that it was like something had, say, snapped, that I knew that I couldn't control it anymore, that these barriers that I had learned as a child, that had been instilled in me, were not enough to hold me back with respect to seeking out and harming somebody.
Would it be?
Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, I always say that when people are using charisma on you, there's a process to it. So they start off by demonstrating value. He clearly has that. He's the craziest psychopath on earth. Then they eventually get you down to where you belong. You create some kind of belonging with them, and then let you differentiate yourself. He's creating belonging with this guy. He's working this guy pretty hard right now. Now, the guy is aware of it, and that's clear. But he's starting to differentiate him as well. He's starting to say, hey, you get it and nobody else does. You can see it in the body language. When he starts off, you see him with that brow ridge up, like, are you getting this? This is different from the other times he's doing. He has his head kind of tilted and his brow up, like, are you getting what we're doing? That and that slight amusement is, yep, here you are. Here's what's interesting for me. It's really hard for a hardcore narcissist to ever say, I'm stupid, I'm this, I'm that. They just don't do it because they know that the minute they let that monster out of the cage, they got a problem. What we see here in him is some real dissonance, because he says, what words did he use exactly? Something about, and that's when you no longer could control. And then he has a hell of a time trying to let that pass. He does that face of rejection. He says, it looks like he's almost saying, well, I wouldn't characterize it that way. He's got distaste in his mouth, concern in his brow, and casts his head away. That to me is him trying to figure out, how do I take this next step? And then he puts those prayerful hands up, makes hard eye contact. Here we are. Now he's got to figure a way to talk his way out of this. And it's the only time we see him starting to kind of do that wiggle, wiggle, wiggle in the chair. It tells me something's going on inside his head. Now, Mark, this is creepy stuff right here. When you talk about what feeling does the person have, and he's reliving something right here is my guess. There's a whole lot of internal stuff going on, a lot of that mouth thing. When I see all that, I don't want to know what he's thinking, but I probably would have said, so what's going on in there now? My guess is he's reliving some of whatever joy he got from that horror, and you just don't want to hear about it. Chase, what do you got?
He goes to great lengths throughout this whole interview to protect his family from negative attention, which I actually think is pretty noble for a psychopath to be doing, or at least uncommon to be doing. But he's describing this feeling of being on the edge, and his hands are out at a stop at the very beginning of this. And then he pulls it into himself like he's rescuing a baby. And he's embracing this feeling. You can see him kind of pulling this in and holding it. You see his shoulders go up. And he's talking about the barriers he learned as a child. There's another eyebrow flash for acceptance. And it's kind of all I have here. But let's go back to the University of Kentucky really quick. More than 50% of the psychologists at the study labeled Bundy as having schizoid personality disorder, or SPD, which you can think of as antisocial personality disorder to the extreme. And somebody with SPD has a kind of a lifelong pattern of indifference to other people and social isolation. And even though schizoids kind of sounds like schizophrenia, they're very different. A person with SPD is in touch with reality and makes sense when they speak, which Bundy has intelligent as he was, absolutely did, which we can see in this video here. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah. So he wants to, doesn't want to shift blame, and then immediately shifts it to pornography. Okay, I get that, but the interviewer doesn't call him out on that. So, you know, it takes two people to lie, one to lie and the other to accept the lie. And here we have somebody who shouldn't have to accept that lie, but they're going down the route of accepting it. So that causes alarm bells in me as why do you not want to call him out on this idea of pornography? Why do you want him to let him shift that blame at that point when any reasonable person watching this, knowing the legend of his background, is going to go, you can't shift that responsibility. You yourself said it's all your responsibility, and then you shifted it immediately. That begs belief. But both are complicit now in taking us into what is, from my point of view, a quite unbelievable world for both of them. He then goes to he could not hold it back. So now he's created, Greg, as you said earlier on, he's created the other entity in there. Now, again, that's that idea of the outside entity, the thing that possesses you. At this point in history has started to become a popular cultural norm. And so we as the TV viewing public, if we're watching cable TV, that's a norm that we have, that there is the possibility, the fantasy there that you can be overcome by something external to yourself, a part of your personality or an outside entity, some kind of alien that takes you over. He's starting to tell that kind of story. Again, he's not, the interviewer doesn't pick up on that and say, well, no, hang on, surely it was you did this. Doesn't pick up on that at all. What interests me most about this is that for somebody, again, who was quite erudite, and I get, Greg, that he may be playing this stumbling on purpose, but I think you're also right that here is the point where the act is a tangible thing in front of him, full of feelings for him, which his personality would not be used to being able to mediate. He has no way of describing these things. He has no way of controlling them. And we, though we may have many of the same feelings and the extremes when they come, we have mediators in that. We've been told by our parents and by many cultural entities around us. Maybe we just haven't had access to the extreme pornography that turned him into the monster that he is, and means he doesn't have these mediators. But certainly what's interesting for me is for somebody who has been so erudite about psychology and psychoanalysis, at this point he is devoid of description, which again means we're probably more into the truth here, and the truth of he has no real understanding of the psychology at all. He is not integrated in any way. And there is something, I don't know how to describe it, but of an inhuman, or what we might feel to be inhuman passions in him, behaviors which he cannot control, he can't even describe, and the acts that come out of that are unseeable and indescribable by most sane human beings. He doesn't even know what it is. That for me is not an act. He doesn't know what he's really got in front of him right now. Scott, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, I'm not going to go that deep. I think he's trying to get his point across here. This is really important that he gets the point across here that this isn't his fault. Again, going back to the same story he's weaving throughout this whole thing. Then he has that painful look and all that. Then he flips right back to normal. There's a flat affect as he looks at the interviewer. What's the interviewer's name, Greg? What's this guy?
Dobson. Dr. James
Dobson. Yeah. I always call him the interviewer. As he looks right back at him. So that shows exactly he's just reset. Nothing has changed. He's staying right there trying to get his point across and all that. He knows he's familiar with emotions and what they look like. He just doesn't know the intricacies of making that happen so it looks real. So that's why it's starting to look odd. A lot of people are starting to really like, maybe not really like him, but you're starting to feel like it's not so bad. You know, as you see him talk and you listen to him, see him go through all these things and putting that problem over there that's not him. He keeps telling you that over there is what caused it, right way over there. So that feeling you're getting, for those of you who have fallen into this, won't be very many of you, that's what's happening. You're seeing a psychopath be a psychopath. And the whole time, this guy listening is just riveted. He's all up in it, man. And he's not asking anything, Mark, because he doesn't know to. He's going to forgive him. No matter what happens, this cat's going to forgive him for it. That's his job. That's what he does. That's what he represents, is all those things. Well, at the same time, if you turn the sound down on this and watch this guy, the Dobson guys, he's talking to him in this. It looks like he's asking him if he can be wormed. That's how sort of painful and just open-faced he is on this. That's what it looks like to me anyway. So yeah, we're just seeing a psychopath be a psychopath here, and he's getting his point across, staying in line, making sure everything happens the way it should. All right, we good?
About pornography.
Do you remember what pushed you over that edge? Do you remember the decision to go for it? Do you remember where you decided to throw caution to the wind?
Again, when you say pushed, I know what you're saying. I don't want to infer again.
I understand that.
That I was
that
I was some helpless kind of a victim, and yet we're talking about an influence, that is the influence of violent types of media and violent pornography, which was an indispensable link in the chain of behavior, the chain of events that led to the behaviors, to the assaults, to the murders, and what have you. It's a very difficult thing to describe. The sensation of reaching that point where I knew that it was like something had, say, snapped, that I knew that I couldn't control it anymore, that these barriers that I'd learned as a child, that had been instilled in me, were not enough to hold me back with respect to seeking out and harming somebody.
Would it be? Ted, after you committed your first murder, what was the emotional effect on you? What happened in the days after that?
Well, again, please understand that even all these years later, it's very difficult to talk about it, and reliving it through talking about it is difficult, to say the least. But I want you to understand what happened. It was like coming out of some kind of horrible trance or dream. I can only liken it to, after, I don't want to over dramatize it, but to have been possessed by something so awful and so alien, and then the next morning wake up from it, remember what happened, and realize that basically, in the eyes of the law, certainly in the eyes of God, you're responsible. To wake up in the morning and realize what I had done, and with a clear mind and all my essential moral and ethical feelings intact at that moment.
You were what you did.
Absolutely horrified that I was capable of doing something like that.
You really?
All right, Chase, what do you got?
I think there's an element of honesty here, believe it or not. I think there is a regret period that follows a lot of these murders with psychopaths, where they the regret is mostly centered around fear of being caught and fear of what they did, or being judged by family members and people they're close to of what they did. It doesn't come across as emotional accessing here because there aren't many emotions in there at all. And he's making eye contact with these very key points. Right in the video, you can see it. And the key points are: I was in a trance, I was possessed, eye contact right at those quick moments, and then looks back down. It was like an alien encounter. And then you wake up from it. You're responsible. What I had done, my ethical feelings intact. And then finally, his last eye contact, capable of doing something like that, right at those little moments. And that's a pure, perfect example of a true psychopath using some kind of charisma manipulation. It's exactly what's happening there, getting you to connect on very deep key points. In 1989, the night before his execution, Bundy had an interview with a psychologist named James Dobson, PhD, the video you're actually watching right now, during which he diagnosed himself. Since I'm going on all these diagnoses, he's diagnosing himself as an addictive disorder personality, or a porn addict is what he diagnosed himself as. Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, we can only wish that he'd gotten like Bozo the Clown videos or something else when he was young, and maybe he would have turned into a comic. Who knows?
Yeah.
This guy there's some reason for everything that happens to him. And when he starts this, you see blinking, I think he's processing for how to answer a question. And then he is calculating what to say, and you hear him breathe out pretty heavily, like an exasperation for what to say. And then he starts to use words that make him sound like a human being. He actually starts talking about feelings and that kind of stuff. My note says, listen to him acting like a human being. He isn't. He's a monster. He's a stalker. He's a murderous human being, if we want to call him that. He's walking the borderline here between being a hardcore narcissist and asking for pity. That's a dangerous thing for those guys. And they're only going to do it when they think there's a benefit to it. They don't want to be perceived as weak, for sure. Well, now he doesn't have to worry about being perceived as weak in prison because he knows the next day he's going away. I have no doubt that this is kind of every time I've heard his story, I believe it builds up, and then he kills, and then he gets a break, and it builds up. And I've heard him say that over and over and over when you see all the interviews with him. But you're seeing why people trusted him, because he is capable of using words that sound like a normal human being. And he puts that out there when he needs it. And then he does your closed eye talking, Chase, and he does every time. Like I said, we both are on the same page, that locked eye contact with a request for approval when he's got his key points of his story. I'm telling you, when I listen to this, all I see is a scene from Cat People or American Werewolf in London or some movie from the 80s that he watched, where you wake up in the morning, there's a dead body in your hotel room, and you're like, how'd that happen? That's what he's making this out to be. Yeah, I get it. He did some monstrous stuff. He probably didn't think he was ever capable of that. But he doesn't say, I didn't do it ever. He says, what was this word? I was horrified that I was capable of doing this. Well, he wasn't horrified enough to go do something about it, to do something else. And we'll hear him go further and further into more of this pushing blame off of self and onto something else as we go into here. This is a werewolf story. Mark, what do you got?
Yep. So gesture-wise, I love the steeple at the start, which is taking the high ground, and then to the lips, to the high ground of silence. So it is a status imperative.
Status.
Thank you. Everybody can drink now.
Nobody jumped in with me. What happened?
I was going to this.
We've been waiting on that.
It is
redo it.
A status play.
Status.
To take the silence, to say nothing. Of course, it isn't a status play.
Status.
Yes, exactly. He doesn't want to say anything because it won't play to his agenda to actually describe what really happens in this situation. And he says, it's difficult to talk about. I don't think it's actually difficult for him to talk about the acts. I'm sure he's done that time and time again and quite possibly enjoyed doing that. It may be difficult for him to describe the feelings around that because of his disconnect with feelings. But to talk about the acts, no, I think that's a lie. But he plays the status of not talking about it.
Status.
It's the last time you'll hear that from me. And now he is the victim again, and he starts playing these classic memes throughout cinema and literary history. We've got Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde there. We've got the Somnambulist, the first ever horror film, the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. He plays that idea.
I'm getting a little tired of watching Bundy. About an hour. It's 2 hours. Oh.
Did you know that in Red Dead Redemption 2, playing the secondary mission can determine the life of these 2 NPCs? In fact, you'll be able to meet Mr. Black and Mr. White near Rhodes a second time, but this time they'll tell you this.
Hey, mister. Oh, hey, friend. Boys don't look so fresh. We ain't. I think we're dying, friend. We ate some bad mushrooms. Bad business. It's been real tough, partner. So it seems. I hate to ask. We need some medicine. Kind of fast. Medicine? Yeah, look at us. Look at me. And he's worse than he looks. And he looks like shit. He ain't gonna last 3 days. And me, I ain't well. Not at all. Not at all. I'm begging you, partner. Why? I told you to help us. You did. You told me a lot of things. We're gonna be all right, buddy. Are we? Well, physically.
The record of fact that Mr. Davis is present in custody. Mr. DiGiacomo and Mr. Palal are here on behalf of the state. Mr. Davis, sir, have you retained counsel to represent you in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
Who have you retained?
Edie Falls.
Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, the man accused of ordering the murder of Tupac Shakur, appears in a Las Vegas courtroom more than 27 years after the rapper was gunned down. I talked with Tupac's family about coming to court looking for justice.
I just want people to know he was a loving individual. He was a genius for sure. He was an angel. He was an angel.
Thanks for joining us for this special edition of Law and Crime Sidebar Podcast, coming to you from Las Vegas. I'm Anjanette Levy. We are here at the Clark County Regional Justice Center, where Dwayne Keefe D. Davis appeared in court earlier this morning. He is charged with ordering the murder of rapper Tupac Shakur back in 1996. Keefe D's lawyer was not here today. He couldn't be here, so Keefe D did not enter a plea as expected. Take a look.
There's a record of fact that Mr. Davis is present in custody. Mr. DiGiacomo and Mr. Palal are here on behalf of the state. Mr. Davis, sir, have you retained counsel to represent you in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
Who have you retained?
Edie Falls.
Okay, and is that person gonna be here today?
No, he needs 2 weeks to set up any continuance. 2 weeks.
He said he needed 2 weeks to be here?
Hey, he needed a continuance for 2 weeks.
Okay, and what's his name again?
Edie Falls.
Edie Fall?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, we're gonna continue this matter for 2 weeks on a Thursday. That date is? October 19th at 9 a.m. Okay, we'll be back on that date.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
So Keefe D did not enter a plea as we had expected him to do because his lawyer, Edie Fowl, practices in California, and Edie Fowl simply could not be here. But we did hear from Clark County District Attorney Steve Wolfson following the hearing.
Nothing will occur in the next couple of weeks until the next court appearance when his lawyer appears. Mr. Davis is being held on no bail. That no bail status will continue at least until his next court appearance. We will continue to ask for a no bail setting because we believe under Nevada law and the evidence in this case, that the proof is evident and the presumption is great, that he will be convicted of first-degree murder, and that allows us to ask for a no bail sentence.
Steve, can you see if he's been cooperating with investigators at least talked about?
I understand that the day of his arrest, they were speaking with him, but I don't have anything further to say other than that.
A reporter then asked Steve Wolfson about a comment made by Tupac Shakur's brother. He reportedly told a reporter that he believed his brother's murder would have been solved a long time ago had he been white.
We don't look at the color of a person's skin. We have a number of cold cases that excellent detectives work on every single day. And whether the person is white, black, red, blue, or green, we move based on evidence.
A 5-year-old deadly car accident complete with police video tonight getting attention because the driver is now the wife of U.S. Senator Bob Menendez, both of them facing federal charges of taking bribes from businessmen. It happened in 2018, before they were married. Nadine Menendez driving her Mercedes in Bogota, I should say, New Jersey, when she hit and killed a pedestrian. Here's Eyewitness News reporter Jim Dolan.
Nadine Menendez was not about to take blame for killing a man who was crossing the street in Bogota.
Why was the guy in the middle of the street?
The guy was
Pedestrians have right of way.
49-year-old Richard Koop, the father of a young son, and on a December night in 2018, he was crossing the street in Bogota after taking an Uber home from a local bar. Surveillance video shows the incident. The car that hit Mr. Koop was driven by the soon-to-be wife of U.S. Senator Robert Menendez.
Didn't do anything wrong. He jumped on my windshield.
She was barreling down the road,
He didn't jump.
hit him, tossed.
Anything wrong?
By the soon-to-be hit Mr. Koop incident.
Man, I gotta admit, I don't even see him. Hold on.
Taking an Uber home from a local bar. Surveillance video shows the incident. The car that hit Mr. Koop was driven by the soon-to-be wife of U.S. Senator Robert.
Oh, he must have just got out that car.
Taking an Uber home from a local bar. Surveillance video shows the incident.
He must be behind this car here on the other side of it.
The car that hit Mr. Koop was driven by the
Yeah, she damn near hit his car, or looked like she did.
soon-to-be wife of U.S. Senator Robert Menendez.
Didn't do anything wrong. He jumped on my windshield.
She was barreling down the road, hit him, tossed him to the roadway, and then sat there in her car for a period of time.
When police arrived, she claimed she was innocent, but said no when police asked her if they could examine her phone, which officers often do to see if a driver was texting at the time of an accident.
You do not want to give me your phone, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was a tragic accident, and obviously, we think of the family.
Menendez and his wife and 2 others are charged in a conspiracy to sell the senator's influence in exchange for cash and gold bars, and significantly, this black Mercedes-Benz, which the indictment claims Mrs. Menendez needed to replace the car that was destroyed the night of the accident.
I know you would like me to try my case in the press. I'll do it in court.
And the indictment claims Senator Menendez pressured local officials to go easy on his future wife. And in fact, Mrs. Menendez was never charged in connection with the accident. But Mr. Koop's family did pursue the case with Mrs. Menendez's insurance company, and the family won.
We made a claim against the defendant and her insurance company, and they agreed that she was completely at fault, and we got the maximum recovery that we were able to do for the estate.
There you have. What the fuck? Florida, man, of course.
I just glanced one more time, and sure enough, penis was in his hand, phone's out, his pants are down.
Police in Port Orange, Florida, on the scene after a call for a man exposing himself in a park. The suspect, Levon Glenn, is less than cooperative when police have to chase him down.
I'm not gonna take my car, bro. You're not gonna take my car. No, I'm not, man. You're not gonna take my car.
You're gonna get tased.
You're gonna get tased.
Get out of the car.
You're not, man. Get out of the car. Bro.
Thanks for joining us here on Law and Crime. I'm Anjanette Levy. Levon Glenn is a 49-year-old man who police in Volusia County, Florida, know very well. He's been arrested several times and is a convicted felon. On August 5th, Port Orange police found Glenn after receiving this complaint.
So we parked next to the car. I get out, and it looked like he had his dick in his hand. Maybe I thought he was taking like pictures or something. His phone was up, like at the steering wheel. So I'm like, I don't think that's what's going on, but I'm getting the kids out at the same time. So I get the kids out, and I just glanced one more time, and sure enough, penis was in his hand, phone's out, his pants are down, almost to his knees. So then that's when we loaded up and called.
About 4 minutes later, police tracked down Levon Glenn, who's agreed to give a statement. Glenn claims he was changing his clothes. It's a little difficult to hear Glenn, so listen closely.
Just out of curiosity, what brought you here to change your car?
So I said, okay, I'm gonna sit right here. I'm gonna change my clothes real quick. Changing my clothes, and then I said, damn, I left my underwear in there. Got out, got my underwear, put my clothes back down, put my underwear on. Tie my shoes, and then y'all walked up. So they want to try to put my clothes back on. He said, he seen me when he walked up, I was doing I'm not filming nobody, I'm not doing none of that stuff, putting my clothes back on. I mean, did I don't do that.
You don't have, like, while you were changing, did you have your phone in your hands at all?
Yeah, my phone's always up.
Okay.
Police then put on some gloves, and it's clear they're going to ask Glenn to get out of the car. Glenn continues to insist he was just changing his clothes.
No, you're not going to take my car, bro. You're not going to take my car. No, I'm not, man. You're not going to take my car.
You're going to get tased.
You're going to get tased.
Get out of the car.
You're not, man. Get out of the car. Wrong, bro. I didn't do nothing wrong. I didn't do nothing wrong. I'm not going to tell you again.
You're going to get tased.
Nothing wrong, bro. Don't touch me, man. Sir? Call the supervisor. Don't put your hands on me. I'm not going to
You're going to get tased.
They get tased. I'm going to record this, bro. That's fine. Okay, I'm not touching nobody. I didn't do wrong. You're not going to touch me and put in that car. You're not.
Last chance.
You're not.
Oh.
That's not mine. You just put that in there. Okay, you put that in there. I ain't doing that in there, man. Get your hands off me, man.
Back up, Davis.
As you saw, Glenn refused to get out of the car several times and then said he would record this whole interaction himself. He also accused the cops of planning something in his car. Drugs, maybe? Then after getting hit with the taser, he takes off.
I know, I get it.
Clearly, this is a problem. The officers chase Glenn in their cruisers.
Black Mazda.
All right, all units, if you're not in the pursuit, 10-3.
10-3 is police code for stop transmitting.
15, I may have the car.
Never underestimate Florida, man.
I'm trying to catch up. 12 Bravo, 15 Central. I think I have the vehicle westbound Ridge Boulevard.
Minutes later, officers catch up to Glenn and run after him. Officers from nearby South Daytona police join in the chase. One officer even scales a wall.
I'm out of here. Quit reaching! Quit reaching! Stop! We're still heading up. Get down. Stop.
Damn.
Stop! Taser, taser, taser! All right, you got it. Here. You just hit me. Put your
Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back now. Put it behind your back. Put it behind your back. All right, got it. All right. Get down on the ground.
Officers stun Glenn one more time.
Behind your back. Loosen up. Loosen up and you won't get tased. Loosen up. Loosen up.
Every time you tense up, you're getting tased.
I'm telling you, man. Yeah. Go ahead, bro.
Levon Glenn is finally in cuffs on the ground, but he's still a little defiant.
Give me the keys. Hold on, drop the keys. I want my keys. Drop them. I don't want my keys, man. You're not gonna have your keys. Drop your keys, bro. Oh, come on, man. Drop them. Drop your keys. Thank you. Yeah, man. All right, well, you're putting yourself in terrible position. Roll forward. Okay, now pop your keys. All right, ready? I'm gonna stand you up. 1, 2, 3. You gotta help yourself, man. Come on.
Once Glenn is on his feet, officers see he has an injury to his head.
Come on here, sit down. Go, sit down. Okay, I'm dizzy. Come on, I know you're probably dizzy. Come on, we're good. Sit down. Sit down, sit down. Sit down, bro. Come on. You need to sit down. Sit. Do you want to stand up? Okay. I'm sorry. Sit down. Put that in my pocket.
Glenn faces a number of charges: indecent exposure, assault with a deadly weapon, battery on a law enforcement officer, possession of cocaine, possession of cannabinoid, fleeing or attempting to elude, and resisting arrest with violence. Glenn was taken to the Volusia County Jail.
Something tells me he's gonna be in jail for a little bit. What? This will be the last one we're checking out, and I'm gonna turn in for the night. Sleep.
Up evidence in many fashions: cleaning supplies, chemicals, even burying things in the dirt. But one woman in Florida apparently chose Diet Mountain Dew. So on July 1st, someone flagged down officers in Daytona Beach to report a house fire. After firefighters put out the blaze, they found the body of 79-year-old Michael Sansoli on the floor. Now, according to the affidavit, the victim had blunt force trauma to the back of his head and multiple stab wounds to his torso. Police discovered a bloody knife near his body and blood on the wall in his roommate's room. That roommate, 35-year-old Nicole Max, was arrested in the early hours of July 2nd at a Crystal fast food restaurant. She had blood on her leg and her shirt, which appeared torn. Police say when they approached her, she dropped a knife and hammer that she was carrying. Authorities said that Max had inconsistent accounts of what happened and requested an attorney when asked about the fire. Now, here's where the Mountain Dew comes in. So when officers led Max to a squad car, she was informed that DNA would be collected from her. In response, Max asked officers for a drink, which happened to be a Diet Mountain Dew, and she proceeded to douse herself with it. Investigators claim that DNA from both parties was still found on the knife at the crime scene. Max is jailed without bond on charges of first-degree murder, tampering with evidence, and resisting arrest with violence. So, Brian, maybe the fact that it's Mountain Dew made her claim that thinking DNA wouldn't be on her. I haven't heard that one before.
So I think it's the diet that washes it off.
It's the diet. It's the diet part.
No,
right?
I'm really confused because I think, is she trying to hide the blood by mixing the Mountain Dew in? Because in my mind, if they're trying to get DNA from her, they want her DNA. They already have the blood. And DNA, just for people out there who want to spread Mountain Dew on them, they don't get it from wiping your skin cells. It's from a buccal or buccal swab from the inside of your mouth. So I don't know what she was thinking with that, but it makes a great argument for a competency hearing or maybe an insanity defense.
Because one was ordered, right? There wasn't a competency evaluation order. Do you think that was necessary?
No, there's nothing, mentally deficient with this individual.
I don't know. Pouring Mountain Dew on yourself.
You have seen where Coca-Cola is, corrosive, and they've, shown evidence of when it can destroy things. Look, I think it was faulty of her to think that the Mountain Dew would cover anything up because, like Brian said, obviously you're going to get the DNA from a buccal swab or from, blood or something else, maybe touch DNA. But here, I think what she was doing was trying to cover up. So she knew she had committed a crime. She knew she was going to try to cover that up. And, she maybe thought she could rinse it off. But I don't think there was any evidence of the fact that she was in any way mentally ill. And, you know, to order a competency hearing, that's a lot of exposure. That's a lot of, you know, money, and it's a lot of time and effort. And I don't think they should have done it here.
What do you think?
I'm just surprised that Terry didn't say consciousness of guilt. That's her favorite criminal one.
Yeah.
This is clearly you're trying to tamper with evidence. Even if you are completely wrong, that's going to wipe it away. That would be, I would argue, consciousness of guilt, that you know there's something on you that can tie you to this murder and you're trying to wipe it away.
Right.
And when
you took the words right out of my mouth, Brian. Consciousness of
because when we talk about insanity, if somebody knows what they did is illegal and knows that their police are after them, that kind of facts don't really help them that much. All right, when we come back. The man behind the Oscar-winning film The Blind Side now alleges in a court filing that he was in fact blindsided by his own family. The controversy surrounding Michael Oher's adoption. That's next. And we're finishing today's show with a story sending shockwaves through the sports world in Hollywood. Retired NFL player Michael Oher, the subject behind the Oscar-winning film The Blind Side, is setting the record straight on his own story with legal action. A petition was submitted Monday to a probate court in Shelby County, Tennessee, and it alleges that Oher's guardians, Sean and Leanne Toohey, never actually adopted him when he was a senior in high school. He claims instead they tricked him into signing conservatorship paperwork. They gave the couple legal authority to make business decisions in Oher's name. The filing also alleges that the couple used their power to strike a deal with the Blind Side movie, earning millions of dollars in royalties for the Toohey family. But Oher reportedly saw none of that money, despite the film being based on him. In a statement to TMZ Sports, the couple's attorney said the conservatorship was put in place to, quote, assist with Mr. Oher's needs, ranging from getting him health insurance and obtaining a driver's license to helping with college admissions. And should Mr. Oher wish to terminate the conservatorship, either now or at any time in the future, the Tooheys will never oppose it in any way. The attorney also said that Oher received an equal cut of anything made off of the Blind Side franchise and recently attempted to blackmail the Tooheys for $15 million. The case has a lot of moving parts, so we spoke to an attorney that helps athletes navigate the dangers of fame to get a little bit more context.
Usually the way to get a conservatorship is with some allegation that this individual, whoever it is incapable of managing their finances. So Michael Oher is alleging in his petition, I have nothing wrong with me. And I don't appreciate the way I was depicted in The Blind Side as being someone that was not of full intelligence. And he feels that that harmed his NFL career because people saw what they saw in the movies and made assumptions about him. So, you know, to a certain point, right, he's not alleging defamation or slander or libel, anything like that. But he is alleging that there was some element of fraud that they had to allege to get that conservatorship. So that's really your main difference. You could be an adopted member of someone's family and, you know, as an 18-year-old adopted individual or, you know, even a minor that's adopted, you have some control over your finances. It doesn't mean that you've turned that over. Conservatorship is quite the opposite. Once the conservatorship's in place, A, it's very hard to control your finances, but B, it's very hard to get out of it. So two very different legal constructs. Generally, getting it out of the conservatorship is tough. You have to show that you are of sound mind, and whatever that condition that initially placed you in the conservatorship has now passed. You know, I guess Michael Oher is saying that I have nothing to recover from. I have nothing to prove since I was put under this conservatorship under false pretenses. So that's really the debate that's going to be fought here. You know, but certainly we'll see. But yeah, that's what Michael Oher wants to do at this point: unwind the conservatorship.
And that's the part that I want to focus on. If he wants it ended and they want it ended, is this going to be quickly resolved by the court?
Well, it should, if in fact they're saying that they will end it because they know he wants it ended. I have to say, Jesse, I was a little confused as to why a conservatorship. If there's nothing wrong with him, why would they want to have a conservatorship where they're going to control all of his decisions, basically? And they're trying to say that they want to control or help him get into college, help him with, you know, medical health insurance. He doesn't need to be in a conservatorship for help if in fact there's nothing wrong with him. And if they defrauded him, if they made him think, look, this is an adoption, nothing's wrong with you, please sign these papers, I do think he has a good case. But if he's filed his petition and they have no objection, this should be resolved very quickly.
Is this a conservatorship issue, Brian, or a contract issue? Because it seems to me it becomes a question of, did he know what he was signing?
Yeah, I think it's a contract issue that bleeds into conservatorship because it's contracted to be a conservatorship. It would be what I think would be called like fraud by inducement, where you get someone to go into a contract by making a misrepresentation or a lie. And he's always under the belief that this is an adoption, where with an adoption, it's just like us with our parents. So they don't control, my mom's Jamaican, so she controls my funds sometimes, but parents don't typically control our funds in the way that if we make money as minors or as even adults, but in a conservatorship, you have extra layer of control. And that's where he's saying he doesn't want. And I've been trying to read this and go through it before this, but along with dismembering or terminating this conservatorship, he also wants them to come to the table, answer some questions, do some accounting, and see how much money they actually owe him.
Would he get money back for this?
Well, he could, and he's asking for millions of dollars. So in fact, if he shows that it was fraud and that he was induced into getting into this conservatorship because they lied about anything and said it was an adoption, then I definitely think he can get some money back.
It's getting so ugly, and I mean, it's disappointing. That was a great movie, and now looking like it's might be all a fraud. Brian, Terry, great to see you. Everyone out there, thanks for joining us here on Law and Crime Daily. We're going to see you next time as we discuss justice in America.
Well, that is some current news clips, cases, takedowns, etc. I've been your host, Square. It's been a late night stream. Good evening and good night.